Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between, I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. This is the one, the only Broke Boy Sports Podcast. We got a ton to get to, so we're going to roll right into it. My co host, Martin Pape, is here as always, ladies and gentlemen.
How's it going, Ashton?
In A-Town, not Atlanta, the other A-Town, Austin, Texas.
No, I was going to say the dirty A, but the dirty A is also Atlanta, so,
the
I guess
lesser of the A's.
the clean A, since Austin's very progressive, so we're in the clean A.
Austin's very green is how they would say.
So green, they charge you for bags at Target and Walmart and HEB.
That's right, bougie to the very end, all the way to bougie to the grave. There you go. We got week 3 of the NFL season here, man, and it was something.
We didn't have a lot of injuries, Ashton. That's a good thing, right? Not too many injuries. The shortest list of injuries we've had so far.
The Thursday night football game, man,
it was all right.
I hate to be that guy, but I'm talking about this upcoming week.
Don't. Anyway, the ratings for this Thursday night football game with the Broncos and the Jets is going to probably be the lowest watched Thursday night football game ever.
And also, game 1 of the NBA Finals.
I was going to say, isn't that when they tip off in the NBA? Or I thought it was wasn't it game 1 not Wednesday?
No,
it's
Thursday. Wednesday or Thursday? I saw it on NBA's Instagram for Thursday. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. Okay, never mind then. Watch the replay of game 1 of the NBA Finals. Do something other than watching what's happening Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night football this week, not too great, but as we have been doing all year since the fantasy season kicked off, we have been brought to you by the cool folks over at Thrive Fantasy. Go ahead and download it on Google Play and the Apple App Store, that is. Hashtag prop up this season. Use the code BROKEBOY, and you can get in on the action. Ashton, I put a team in this weekend, and we're going to get to it. The theme of this week, Ashton, is my fantasy did absolutely terrible across the board. Not the greatest week for me, but it could be a great week for you if you download Thrive Fantasy and get in on the action. Use code BROKEBOY, put $20 down, you get $20 straight back. So that's $40 worth of action that you could get in on. And we're gonna have to take a look at some of the props for this weekend, Ashton. I got to get the ship righted after losing 2 of my 3 fantasy leagues. My Thrive Fantasy didn't even do too well, and another DFS that I did also not too well. So go ahead, download the Thrive Fantasy, get on there, hashtag prop up. And it's not just a typical DFS site. You're betting props. You're betting if a couple of weeks ago on Thursday Night Football when Baker and Joe Burrow went head-to-head, you could have picked the over or under on how many passing yards Joe Burrow had. And this was a good one to follow along. How many passing touchdowns and interceptions combined? 2.5 for Baker Mayfield. I remember that one was a popular bet. And they do that with other quarterbacks as well, Ashton. So go ahead, download Thrive Fantasy, and let them know that the Broke Boy Sports Podcast sent you by using the code BROKEBOY when you sign up.
No doubt about it. Stuff about me for fantasy. I'm looking at my results right now, as a matter of fact. I lost to my friend Philip O'Brien. His team scored 209. I only scored 162. So that was a bad one that I knew I was going to lose from the jump. He had multiple offensive players who outscored my entire offense, and all of his defensive players outscored my defense. So that was fun. One in the League of Clowns, the Mediocre Football League. Cut Dan Snyder is the name of that team there. 160 points to 126. Your Achilles heel, which is our Mediocre Fantasy Football League. I don't know why I just said the last one was, but I don't know who Peterson is, but I cook him.
That's my boy T-Bone, and he for some reason, Ashton,
he's 0-3.
He's 0-3, but if you look at his squad, he actually has Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes because he drafted both of those quarterbacks as his first 2 picks. An interesting strategy in a non-2 quarterback league. But I believe if he had started Patrick Mahomes instead of Lamar Jackson last week, it would have been extremely close. I don't know who would have came out on top on that one, but he squandered almost 32 points by starting Lamar Jackson over Patrick Mahomes. So it's going to be interesting. Taking a look at the standings as it loads up here on twitch.tv /BrokeBoy.
Sorry, I have to point this out too. I lost in the punishment league as well. Pretty badly. So that
no punishments though this week? Did he get beat by
No,
100?
no, it's at the end of the season. You have to
Oh,
lose
okay.
a playoff because you have to do like 3 punishments from the pool of punishments. If you lose the clown bowl, I'm
Mm.
1-2 right now, but I can safely say I probably won't be the clown this year. There's a guy who is in the league. He's had almost every single one of his offensive starters, including now Chris Carson,
Oh,
go down. So that's been a rough one for him.
we've got one guy in my main league, Ashton. He's got 6 guys on IR already, and just lost Chris Godwin
Wow.
as well, who we're going to get to in the injury list. So there's been a couple of serious. He's just been hit with the injury. There's always seems to be one team in every fantasy league that just half their squad is missing
Yeah,
by the end of the
they
season.
caught the big L. They
Yep.
caught the big fade from
Yeah.
the fantasy gods themselves.
And
But yeah, man, we'll
really
move
quickly,
on.
Ashton, your favorite super fan has joined us on the Twitch chat, twitch.tv/BrokeBoy Sports. Frosty says, "Yo, Ashton," with a lot of O's. He is tuned in because Ashton put on his Twitter at FB_playbook that he's got a truth bomb coming up for us in just a couple of minutes. You can follow me at @MartinPape_. That's MartynPape_. Ashton is at FB_playbook. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Broke Boy Pod, and you can get at us on YouTube, where we post the each episode each and every week. So you can watch it on there. You can watch it on twitch.tv/Broke Boy Sports up to 14 days after. And we're moving right along, Ashley. I got to give a couple of shout outs because we have officially crossed the 20 follower mark in less than a couple of months of action here on twitch.tv. So shout out to Nick Micro, who followed us yesterday. And
Oh,
then
that's my guy Nick.
and then also David 8 hours ago. So before we even went live, it seems like that's happened the past 2 weeks. We've had somebody follow and we're just promoting the show and not actually live. So shout out to everybody
That's
tuning
why
in.
you tweet relentlessly into
Yep.
the void that is Twitter, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
it is.
I have alerts on my I have alarms set on my phone so that the first thing that I do in the morning is tweet out the show and I tweet out the link so you can go and follow us. I will say this, my Twitter followers are going down, but for some reason, I don't know what it is, Martin. The numbers the numbers of people who are listening to this podcast are all the way up.
Yep.
All the way up.
All the
Every
way up.
yeah.
That's my
Straight up
singing
like
for the
Fat
week.
Joe.
Yeah, there we go.
That's fat, very fat Joe out here, man. But yeah, shout out to everybody who's listening to every single episode of the pod. Whether you agree or disagree, you can always hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook. If you got some hot takes, we ask for hot takes every single day before the show goes live, and then the day of as well. You can hit me up on Instagram at @TheAshtonForever. Leave I put one of those question boxes where you can request put stuff inside the question for me to answer on my Instagram story, but then I'll carry them over to the actual show itself and answer them on here, and Martin will take a stab at them as well. Martin, tell the people about the strange times in lives of our Pick'em League, where really it's really weird. It's getting weird fast.
There seems to be a theme for me, Ashton. I'm trying to pull it up here for people watching on Twitch so they can see some of the picks. It seems as though every game that I get wrong is by less than 1 touchdown, and I don't know how I feel about that because right now, for the first time in 3 weeks, I didn't get 10 right. Only 9 points this past week for me, so I'm sitting by myself in second. You are down there in third, and Ted's 1 game ahead in first with 30 picks right so far, but not a good week for my picks. You and I both getting 8 right, so yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. We're on the same podcast together, so the conversation definitely, like, the picks blend together, as you can tell if you've been listening to the NFL episodes. So Martin usually is only different from me on like 1 or 2 games. So that'll mean that it'll come down to at some point during the season we'll have to go drastically different instead of just 1 or 2 games have to go completely opposite of each other, which will be interesting because it'll probably be like the last week of the season. I'll be like, I don't know, man, just got to throw it up, see what happens, throw it up against the wall and see what happens, bro. Other stuff going on, man. The pick'em has been interesting. We go into our next one here. Are we doing Hi My Name Is, or you want to do rookie rollout?
We can do it. Well, I was gonna quickly just roll through the fantasy league real quick. We got Lee sitting the last of the undefeateds in our mediocre fantasy at its finest, 3-0, his team has been doing really well. I actually talked to him on Facebook Messenger just yesterday. He's hoping that we come around and make this a late buy-in league. That's how well he's
Wow.
buying
Yeah.
into his team. He's seeing if we can maybe get a little money on the table. We got a few teams stuck at 2-1. My friend Kevin, myself. I took my first L this past weekend. Frosty Nugs is at 2-1. Another friend named Kevin's at 2-1. My dad, who unfortunately we figured out the buys, Team Tank, he's out of here. Hasn't responded to a single email, so he's going to be on a bye week each and every week. Unfortunate that
Boy.
his players aren't going to be available for the rest of the season, but it is what it is. Then we've got Bamfius, who likes to come into the chat every now and then at 1-2. Judge Judy at 1-2, and Ashton, you finally got a win on the board against the team that is 0-3 on the season. So
That's
it's
right.
it's
Bottom feeders
interesting.
got it. How is it interesting? What's the deal?
Oh, just how the standings are. I've just misclicked on something completely entirely, but like just the standings, how like there's one team undefeated, one team winless, and then the rest of us are always or we're kind of just like squished there in the middle.
Yeah, man, and I made some big changes, and of course things. I made some big changes across the board in some of the teams. Right now, I have a claim in to drop Jerry Judy and pick up T Higgins. I know that I had Justin Jefferson in one league for the big league that I'm in, and I think I dropped him. But terrible week to do it. I knew as soon as I did it, I was like, this will be the week that the rookie figures it out.
Yeah.
This will be it. And then lo and behold, we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. But we are moving on in the show. Finished talking about the fantasy league, and it's still pretty tight, relatively tight for a lot of people. The playoffs are going to be 2 weeks as well, so don't forget that. It'll be interesting. But anyway, Martin, anything else you got for fantasy before we go on to Hi, my name is?
Well, Hi, My Name is he had a decent fantasy week, but we can get right into it. Ashton, for those watching on Twitch.tv, it's already been given away because I accidentally had the info that I was going to read off up on the screen and didn't realize
I
it.
did not
So
see it. Yeah, no.
so this one is hopefully is going to stump you because you get these right so often than not. But all right, here we go. Hi, my name is a player that scored his first NFL touchdown this past weekend.
Oh man, it's probably T Higgins, right?
No, close,
Oh,
close. He is a wide
Justin
receiver.
Jefferson.
Nope. I am also a rookie wide receiver that scored my first touchdown this weekend, but it wasn't a reception. I ran this in.
Man, that is. Oh, Allen. It's not Allen Gage.
No,
This is
uh,
probably one of the game. Is it from the Jets? That rookie wide receiver number 84.
it's for they played at the Jets Stadium, but it was against the Giants. He plays for the 49ers. He was injured for the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
game.
yeah. You got me.
It's
You
Brandon
got me.
Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk, wearing
Oh
number
yeah,
11
Brendan
now.
Ayuk. Ayuk. Yeah,
Ayuk,
yeah,
he's going to be high. My name is this week because I really want to know how often a wide receiver's first NFL touchdown is actually a run play. So that I don't I feel like that doesn't happen too often. And
When you play for Kyle Shanahan,
yep.
positions are meaningless, bro.
Oh yeah.
Positions are just They're just loose suggestions.
He knows how
Like
to get the ball in anybody's hands.
no doubt about that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on too, because he basically cooked up. Um, he and Sean McVay reminded us of why they're so exceptional.
Yep.
Hands down, two of the biggest mistakes in Houston Texans history was letting Kyle Shanahan walk away because he wanted to go coach for his father, Mike Shanahan, in Washington with Robert Griffin III, and then of course the other one being releasing D'Amico Ryans.
Apparently I was reading an article because for some reason I still click on the content that Houston Texans put out. All three Houston Texans coaches will be at NRG Stadium this weekend because Dom Capers and Gary Kubiak. Yeah, Gary Kubiak are both part of the Vikings coaching staff, and then of course we've got Bill O'Brien is the head coach. So all three of the Texans coaches at one point are going to be in the stadium. So it'll be interesting. It will be interesting to see how loud the boos are because they're actually letting fans in this week as well, which we'll probably get to more on Thursday. But Ashton, it's time for the rookie rollout. Who are you? Which other rookies stood out to you this past week?
So we got two of them here. Rookie rollout being the segment where we talk about, like Martin said, the exceptional rookies that have done. I mean, they showed up and showed out this week. Just this week, though. But for the most part, these are pretty obvious ones here. T. Higgins, who, if you've been tracking what he's been up to, I've mentioned him for like the third time on this podcast already. But T. Higgins, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. And if this says anything about, I don't know if this is intentional or if it's just a random number that he wanted. T. Higgins wears the legendary Ocho Cinco, which should be retired in Cincinnati, but that's how shitty of a franchise Cincinnati is, that they won't retire one of the greatest wide receivers, if not the greatest wide receiver in the history of the franchise. But T. Higgins wears number 85. Week 1 of the season, he had 0 targets, which means he had 0 yards and 0 touchdowns. Week 2, Joey Burrow found him a little bit there. He had 3 receptions for 35 yards. And then this week in the tie, which we'll address later, because it was more about the Eagles than it was about the Bengals, 5 catches, 40 yards and 2 touchdowns, baby. He said scoring those 2 receiving touchdowns was better than winning in Warzone, which I would like to hope, and also a little bit more difficult. So, yeah, that's 5 catches, 40 yards for T. Higgins. He seems like he's heating up a little bit more, and he's on the upward trend as we get past that point in the season where coaches get past the bullshit of, oh man, we got to start the vets won out the camp battles and all this kind of stuff like that. We got to get them the reps. We got to make sure that they know, that we got to make sure the reps and the experience are out there, making sure that they're making plays and everything like that, instead of what they should have done at the start of the season, which, we can say about Justin Jefferson, because remember, he started the season as the number 3 wide receiver. Same thing for Jerry Jeudy. He was listed as the 3rd wide receiver. He is now the number 1. Whether you believe it or not, he's the number 1 wide receiver there. But yeah, T. Higgins, man, showing up and showing out. The other one, the tool man himself, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, brought everything in the kitchen sink this week, man. He helped the Indianapolis Colts in what will be the easiest game they will play all season, and we'll talk about just how poorly the Colts played in the easiest game of their entire year. Jonathan Taylor had 9. So, wow, that was a huge jump. Sorry, I'm looking at the stats here and it just totally disappeared. But Jonathan Taylor, who has recently taken over as the primary running back for the Indianapolis Colts with the injury to the season-ending injury to Marlon Mack. He will not be back this year. He tore his Achilles. Ruptured his Achilles is the medical term or whatever. Yep. I've always wondered why it's ruptured instead of tear, because the Achilles is a ligament. Yeah, sometimes I'm sure it looks pretty bad when surgery's done on it. Anyway, Jonathan Taylor, 9 carries in week 1, 22 yards there. He had 26 carries in that week 2 game. Was that versus the Vikings?
Yeah.
I want to say it was versus the Vikings.
The Colts have had a pretty easy schedule.
Yeah, we can talk about that later too. Anyway, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. Week 3, 13 carries, 59 yards and 1 touchdown to go with that one this week versus the New York Jets, who, honestly, Martin, if they sold tickets, would people buy them at this point? 13 carries, 59 yards, 1 touchdown this week for the big guy. He's slowly ramping up there, Martin. Yep. He's looking like he wants to be here for a little while. He also has the best offensive line in the NFL, facing off against some of the worst defensive lines in the NFL. If you look at the stats across the board, the Vikings have failed consistently to get pressure, which is something that they were banking on this year. But hey, that's what happens when you get rid of Everson Griffin, I guess. Anyway, moving on. We have one award to give out here, and it is for the man this week in the NFL who more than likely just annihilated you in fantasy football, but more importantly, was basically a nuclear bomb when he got dropped on the field for this NFL weekend. It was pretty obvious. Sunday Night Football had one of the better games this entire week. It was the Packers versus the Saints, and there was one man who stood out. It was the one man with the diamonds in his mouth.
Dude, how much do you think that is? How much do you think that gorilla is that he wears in game? It's got to be a couple million, right?
I will say this: he is in New Orleans, so I know there's one guy who probably gave him like what the details were, like the hookup on one of those was. Who just dropped? What, he just dropped an album, right? Lil Wayne just dropped one last week.
Oh yeah, Lil Wayne, yeah. He re-released Carter 5.
Re-released Carter 5 with like what is it, 10 plus songs or something like that?
10 new songs. So yeah, I gave it a listen. I bumped it in the headphones, as some people like to say.
If you don't know anything about Lil Wayne, he's one of those.
He's the GOAT.
He's one of those guys. He records all the time. Like, he has hundreds of songs that just haven't been released. Anyway, Alvin Kamara probably hit him up a little bit, but Alvin's been wearing a grill since he was at Tennessee.
Yep.
So this new one that he had, man, that
Dude, it
thing
was
was out there
shiny. And even Chris
blessed.
Collinsworth said something about it too. It was
Chris
great, but
Collinsworth did not. By the way, when Chris Collinsworth said check out that grill, I think he meant the term mouth when he said grill. I don't think he knew that was a grill.
yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
But that was Alvin Kamara, 6 runs for 58 yards. So you're like, well, where did the nuke come in? It's because Ashton, he had 13 catches for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. He literally got a first down every single time he touched the ball on average, even though he had probably one of the better plays. Was a 70, 55, 75 yard. Just he looked like he was jogging at one point, but burning past the Packers defense. He
Yeah, that
smoked them.
patience. He was like, hold on, hold on. Let me get one of these big dudes in here to hit one of these little dudes real quick, and then scoot on out the way. So yeah, Chris Collinsworth pointed it out. That center was moving. The center
Yeah,
for the
he
Saints,
was.
he's
I
like,
think he was an
oh
Aggie
wow.
too. Nick McCoy. Yeah, I think
He's
he
like,
went to
these
A&M.
guys are super small once you get past like the 10-yard line. What's up with that? So anyway, yeah, they were out there booking it. Anyway, the Saints got that one. Also, for all those doofuses who were on the internet making fun of Alvin Kamara's workouts, where he has especially that one video where he has the barbell, it has resistance bands tied to kettlebells, and he's supposed to walk forward and work on his weight shifting and controlling the core of his body as
Mhm.
his weight shift, almost like he was simulating a massive amount of weight leaning on one half of his body, but also staying standing when he did that. Which sounds a lot like when somebody tries to tackle you, like a
Mhm.
grown man tries to jump on your right hand side, but somehow you're able to stay up and maintain your balance. Isn't that weird how that all worked out really well? They also showed a bunch of the cool videos where you had the Bosu ball and the Hero Six, which
Yeah.
are they're it's man, it's hard to describe.
The
It's a
one-legged
bunch
thing
of
that he was doing as well is
yeah,
pretty
the
impressive.
one-legged Bosu ball and them constantly trying to shift his weight and everything like that. Guys, don't forget, we're talking about like top tier elite level athletes. They don't need to be out here like deadlifting and squatting like you other regular Joe Schmoes that are in the gym. They already have all the muscle that they need. They have to work on like elite level reaction time to get better in the NFL. Anyway, it was pretty cool to watch Alvin Kamara go out there and look like his old self again. Because last year, I think it was like after week 4, he had like some ankle injury and nobody ever
Mhm.
brought it up, but they also criticized him as if he was 100% healthy. And it was pretty obvious that he was not. Also, side note, Latavius Murray was looking pretty good out there. I know a lot of people haven't been talking about him since he left the Vikings, but
Hey,
the
he did my
backup role,
fantasy team a solid last year when I randomly picked him up when Alvin Kamara had like actually didn't play for a couple of weeks, and I think that was when he scored like back-to-back 30-point games in fantasy. It was awesome.
yeah, no doubt about that. Shout out to Latavius Murray. Shout out to Alvin Kamara, this week's nuke. He dropped a bomb, almost eviscerated the Packers on that one. They lost by a touchdown in that game. We'll talk about it a little bit later on as well. But nonetheless, Alvin Kamara out there killing the game as he always has been, trying to make sure he makes that money and then some after this season is over with. Rep watch. I didn't write it into the Doc Martin, so I'll just tell you what it was off the top of my head. We still wondering what the deal is going on with the Buffalo Bills because Singletary led the team in rushing yards this week. Moss led the team in rushing yards. Zach Moss led the team in rushing yards last week. And I want to say nobody's had a 100-yard rushing game yet out of
Yeah,
either one.
Josh Allen's
Because,
stealing all the yards apparently.
yeah, Josh Allen led the team in rushing, I think, week 1.
Yeah.
So they have actually, it's a three-way battle because it's a three-way battle for the rushing yard carries. Anyway, moving on. Other stuff. Rep watch. Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, T Higgins. They are now um, Justin Jefferson moves up to number 2, and it took like
Through.
3 weeks into the
Yep.
season. Jerry Judy's number 1 because of injuries. And injuries at multiple positions, including offensive line and wide receiver, because Cortland Sutton is out for the year, and also change at quarterback. So hopefully Jeff Driscoll's getting real familiar with Jerry Jeudy because he seems like the kind of guy you want to give the ball to a little bit more. But
Mhm.
we'll see what happens as the season goes on. You got any other ones? Oh, Tariq Cohen is on rep watch because he's going to get 0 reps because he's hurt.
Yeah,
So
taking it right into the injury list. Tariq Cohen, probably the biggest name, or at least definitely had the worst injury of this entire list. A short one this week, Ashton, and by short I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2. I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 major 10 injuries that I have seen. I'm sure there's a lot more. These are just the ones that I found an update on looking around the interwebs before the show went live. Tariq Cohen, A couple people got him on their fantasy teams. Torn ACL, out for the season. It's one of those things, you know, the meme, you hate to see it. This is actually something that you do hate to see. This guy is, he's not the prototypical running back.
He was holding it down for the short kings out there.
Exactly. Literally what I was getting at. He's not the biggest guy, and unfortunately, he's going to be out for the season after just signing a new contract with the Bears. So that's at least he got his money before he was out for the season. But still, you can guarantee he'd rather be playing.
Just like Saquon Barkley, I love to see it because Saquon, one, does not have to continue to play for the Giants and waste another year playing underneath the Giants team that is going nowhere very quickly. Anyway, so shout out to Saquon Barkley. Hopefully he's better soon. Same thing for all these guys. Tariq Cohen, glad that he's not going to be involved with a season that's not going very far.
Hey, the Bears are undefeated. Don't talk about too quickly. Going through the rest of the list, Jordan Reed, who's actually playing tight end for the San Francisco 49ers now, sprained his knee. He's on the IR for 6 to 8 weeks. Jerick McKinnon, this one was a surprise.
Can we take a second to talk about Jordan Reed?
Yeah, go for it.
Jordan Reed is hands down one of the every time I see him get hurt, I really legitimately get sad. I'm disappointed. Not disappointed. I'm bummed out when dudes get hurt because people use that as leverage to stop signing them. But Jordan Reed is a different situation. Jordan Reed has had so many concussions so many diagnosed concussions, which means he's probably had 2 or 3 times as many as that have been diagnosed. He's actually missed time. I've seen him get 3 of his concussions in real time watching a game, and it's you almost, and I get it. Jordan Reed's a grown ass man. You almost wish somebody would stop him from playing football, dude. It's not because he's bad. Jordan Reed is actually very talented. That's how he continuously ends up on teams. My biggest issue with him is that that's a guy that's going to have problems after football's over.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dude that's like the textbook example of CTE being a real thing. And I hope to whatever deity is out there or whatever that he's going to be all right, because all the signs point to Jordan Reed's not going to be able to walk. And Jordan Reed is also going to be punch drunk when he's 60.
Yeah. And the article that I got that news from actually literally started with Jordan Reed got hurt. It actually wasn't a head injury. That's how the sentence was That's how the writer did it, you know?
8 concussions.
Yeah, it's wild.
He's had 8 diagnosed concussions in his football career, which means that he's had way more.
Yep.
So, and by the way, that's how the math goes. You should assume at least twice as many. When you see, if you look at a number account, because one, vast majority of these NFL players that are still playing did not play. They played during a time period where concussions were not taken as seriously. That time is not that far removed, if you guys recall. Case in point, Luke Kuechly a couple years ago literally got knocked unconscious to the point where he woke up and he was uncontrollably crying, which is a stage 4 concussion symptom, but he doesn't remember any of it. So, and I have a strange feeling it's 100% of the reason why he retired this year.
Oh, so, yeah, for sure.
It's why he retired last year. So, and it's just one of those man, dude, you get a stern when you see certain guys who end up on the injury list. You get a stern reminder of this shit is real. This is people's real life type stuff. Sorry, go ahead about Jordan Reed.
Let's go through the list so we can get into the breakdown of week 3. Jerick McKinnon apparently injured his ribs during the game. As of
do not take any injections from the doctor.
Don't go to LA. Get that one sorted out. But I'm still waiting on an update on exactly how severe. They're still waiting on an update on exactly how severe it is. And anybody who's been following the 49ers, their 2 other running backs are injured. And Jerick McKinnon was even though he's a first-string running back, was their third-string running back.
Better start stretching those hammies, Martin.
Yeah, they might be giving me a call. Dallas Goedert, one of the tight ends for the Philadelphia Eagles, is listed as having a small ankle fracture, or a small fracture in his ankle.
It's a small fracture when it's not you that's got the fracture. Right?
Exactly.
That's what Bomani Jones says all the time. He's like, it's minor surgery when it's not you having the surgery.
Yeah, and he's been placed on short-term IR. Deshaun Jackson hurt his hamstring, and he is day-to-day. Russell Gage.
You could literally save and post that tweet about halfway through any NFL season, and it could be right.
Yeah, with Deshaun Jackson, his hammies have
That's fast people
That's
problems.
I
I
was just
can't
about to
relate.
say.
I
They've been
can't
moving
relate.
too fast his entire career. Russell Gage, it's said to have been a head injury, most likely a concussion. He left the game. No update has been provided before we went live. Or I didn't see an update on Russell Gage, but it's likely he'll be entering the concussion protocol. Deontay Johnson for the Steelers, he got hit in the head. He has a concussion and is in concussion protocol. John Brown, another hamstring injury. There's three hamstring injuries just on these 10 players alone. John Brown, hamstring, he's listed day to day. Chris Godwin, who just came back from a head injury or concussion, he hurt his hamstring and he's going to be out for multiple weeks. So that just tells you like how different a hamstring injury can be. One guy's day to day, or two of the guys are day to day. The other one's already out multiple weeks. And then the
Yeah, and
last,
if you've ever had that hamstring injury, Martin, it's
oh,
like
it's rough. Yeah.
you wake up and you know it's still there.
Yeah.
Like there's some of those hamstring injuries you wake up and you're just like, nope, not today. And I'm sure that's exactly what it's like to be an NFL player. When you wake up, you feel, or the worst one is, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. You wake up, you feel fine because you have like an injury that's like on your lower body, like your knee or your foot or your ankle or something like that. You wake up, you feel fine. You take that first step, and it's still there, like it just happened yesterday. That's always the worst feeling. Dwight Freeney described that one time trying to get ready for the Super Bowl when they played the Saints and they actually lost to the Saints or whatever. He was like the biggest ankle injury. He had the biggest injury of the entire Super Bowl because he spent the whole time trying to like work it back into conditioning, make sure it was all there. And he talked about like waking up thinking it was all 100%, and then he would take his first step and the pain would just surge through his leg. So anyway,
last person on the list, probably the most controversial, which has had both coaches and players from each team speaking out about it. Chris Carson suffered I think they're calling it a first degree knee sprain after being gator roll tackled by a defensive tackle for the Cowboys. He's going to be out at least 1 to 2 weeks. And it's safe to say Pete Carroll is pissed that
yeah.
there's no punishment or anything for the gator roll tackle. And for those that
Which
don't know, gator roll tackle is basically the guy grabs you by the ankles or lower part of the legs as he's going down and does what an alligator does when it's fucking
it's a
killing
death roll.
something. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
death roll.
yeah.
The alligator death roll. It's fucking insane that that's
Yeah,
allowed
and
and people can
you
get
can
away
watch
with
the
it.
video. You can watch the video. It's a D lineman that does it too,
Yep.
like a big one. So he put some torque on that, and
Yep.
he rolled over 3 times, and Chris Carson only rolled twice. So that at one point his foot was not where it was supposed to be. It was not pointing in the direction it was supposed to be pointing, and it's pretty wild because if you do that to somebody with like 2 legs, it's fine. But if you do it to just one leg, it's pretty messed up because there's like no reason to. He already knew he was down on the ground.
Yeah.
It comes off like a dirty play.
Oh, it is
Nah,
it's
yeah.
100% a dirty play. It is. It's one of those things that I wouldn't be surprised if it gets outlawed like next season or like. There's always one thing that happens each NFL season. Like remember the challenging the challenging
Remember
pass
when Tom
interference
Brady
and
got
shit.
his ACL torn because
Yeah.
somebody fell into it while he was stepping up in the pocket or whatever, and then
And
they
now that's a
created the
rule.
strike zone. Yeah,
Yep. I wouldn't be
that kind of
surprised
thing.
if Gator roll tackles are a thing of the past starting next season. But those are
Even
the
though
injuries,
you know
Ashton.
what the ironic part about Gator rolls is, right?
What's that?
That's the method that they teach people to tackle with. That's legit how they teach you to do it with like 2 legs. They teach you to wrap and roll with 2 legs. And you know what's really funny? The video that you go on YouTube and look up for how to do that roll, how to do that rolling tackle, that absorption tackle, is made by Pete Carroll and the Seahawks. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the injury. So now we get into the meat of this episode, which is looking back at week 3. We're gonna break down all the games. And Ashton decided the list of the order that we're going in this week, and we are starting in Houston with the
Yeah,
Houston
so
Texans.
we should explain how this is gonna break down. I did it like this so that we can put like timestamps on it or whatever.
Okay.
It is broken down by division in the NFL. So we're starting off with the AFC North. We're not going to repeat like breaking down games or whatever, but we're going to start off with divisions because, that's how you win playoff. That's how you get into the playoffs. Anyway, since y'all like to talk about divisional titles meaning nothing. AFC North, top to bottom. The Pittsburgh Steelers sit at 3-0 go through all the standings real quick. My bad. Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0. Behind them are, wow, we wrote a lot on that game. 2-1. The Baltimore Ravens. You saw them lose on Monday Night Football in what was supposed to be the most dramatic game of the entire season. It was pretty interesting for a little while. Behind them, believe it or not, in third place, the Cleveland Browns. And then, of course, you guessed it, the 0-2-1 Bengals right behind them. We'll talk about that one later on when we get into the podcast. But we start off here at the top, Martin. We break down what the final score in this game was 28-21. The game story of this whole situation, and the game story, I try and use it to summarize what happened throughout the course of the game. The Texans offense scored 21 points, which is the most they've scored this season so far, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, most they've scored this season so far. Here's how the touchdowns went for them. They had a 7-play, 74-yard drive, 2 minutes and 54 seconds. 9-play, 54-yard drive, 3 minutes and 58 seconds. And then they had a 50-second 5-play drive that went 75 yards. All those went for touchdowns. God damn it. When they are on, they're on. Sometimes they're not on, and we'll talk about when that is. It's usually the second half of the game. The Texans got shut out in the second half of this game. Martin, in total, there were 9 punts in this game. 4 of them came from the Pittsburgh Steelers. 5 came from the Texans. The Texans now have a turnover in every single game they've played this season. The Pittsburgh Steelers have an 8-game streak with a turnover, I believe it was, after they got that interception from Deshaun Watson, who, if you saw it, I'm sure PFF credited him with throwing that interception, not the wide receiver. He was flowing to his right-hand side, empty out of the pocket. There were defensive linemen pursuing him. He threw it back into a flowing zone that was trailing. He was running towards the out-of-bounds side on the right-hand side. Defense is all flowing to the right-hand side because the wide receivers are now running to the right-hand side so they can get open for Deshaun. He throws it right before he goes out of bounds to try and throw it across his body, and he throws it right into a defender's hands for an interception. That's 100% on him. And Martin wrote this in all caps, so I'll read it like he wrote it. The Texans had 5 plays past the 50-yard line in the second half. 5. All right.
I don't know if you put enough emphasis on the 5. So the team off. I mean, I know you said that when they're on, they're on, and they're off, they're off. That is the definition of being fucking off. Like
off.
100%. It just I can't watch the Texans right now. It's just too bad. So
you sound so soft right now, Mark.
Dude, no.
How you gonna if you're not here for the tough times?
I'm here. It's like I've said. Each and every week. I will not celebrate a single win this year. I'll tell you that much. There ain't going to be no celebrating.
Well, the win this weekend is not going to be much to celebrate about.
All right, it's going to be an interesting game this weekend. But from what I did see,
I did promise on Tuesday this is the deadline day.
Yep.
Even if I disagree, if the Texans lose to the Vikings, I join the fire Bill O'Brien train because I don't have a choice at that point because the Vikings are probably bottom 3 in the NFL.
Yeah,
so.
It was a rough one from what I saw on the NFL Red Zone.
It was not. It's deceptive. So that's what you get for watching Red Zone. The Texans legit at one point had control of that game. So do the full game breakdown. The Texans came out swinging. The Steelers came out swinging. They were stopping. Remember what I said? If they stop James Conner, they win the game. Guess what they didn't do in the second half? Stop James Conner. They had a couple of drives where they were able to string together 3 good defensive plays to force a punt. They had multiple drives where they could not do that. And Martin, we've already said there's no denying it whatsoever. The Texans probably have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, right? When this game was all said and done, here's a free one for you. When this game was all said and done, Bernardrick McKinney and Zach Cunningham led the team in tackles. That's not good. They both had double-digit tackles when the game was over. They do a lot. They get put. Bernardrick McKinney and Zach Cunningham get put in the position that Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright get put into for the Seahawks, and they are not those players. Nope. They are not 2 of the best linebackers in the NFL. So they get put in those positions, and it shows because they have to tackle all sorts of dudes. They have to tackle wide receivers. They got to tackle tight ends. They got to tackle running backs because just the secondary is set up to be in a zone all the time. But as time goes on, we'll see if it actually improves. Who knows? But the Texans defense, pretty bad.
0 sacks. So I just got to step in there. 0 sacks from the $100 million man, J.J. Watt, 1 week after we were glorifying him getting 2 sacks. So just a reminder that he's getting paid $100 million and has 6 tackles this season and 2
4
sacks.
sacks. 3 sacks?
No, he's
Yeah.
got 2 sacks on the season.
He's got 2 sacks against Lamar Jackson 3 games into the year. I'll take it.
He has 2 sacks. He's being paid $100 million to get 2 sacks in 3 games when you're playing Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Okay, those guys can scamper, whatever. Big Ben, that is a single threat quarterback, and he got a goose egg.
Okay. We're gonna have a huge disagreement if you think Big Ben is a single threat.
I mean,
Big Ben.
I don't consider Big Ben a dual threat quarterback.
Martin, Big Ben is what people want Josh Allen to become. You understand that, right?
I mean,
like they want him to be a faster. They want Josh Allen to be the fast version of Big Ben. So he's definitely a dual threat. Just because he's slow does not mean he's not a dual threat.
Okay, I'll take it back. He's not a dual threat. J.J. Watt still got 0 sacks.
You want to talk about the 2 sacks? Whatever. We can sit here and argue about this.
There's no argument.
It's 3 games into the season. He already has 2 sacks. Most defensive ends call a 10-sack season a really good year, and he's 20% of the way there with 3 games into the season.
He's currently tied for 15th in sacks in the NFL. $100 million, 15. Yeah. That's how all right.
You expect him to be number 1 every single week in sacks?
With $100 million? Fuck yeah, he better be leading the league in sacks. Especially when you give away DeAndre Hopkins because you need to save money. That's one of my biggest fucking takeaways from all of this is J.J. Watt is not playing up to his contract. There's no way you can defend paying $100 million to get 2 sacks through 3 games. There's not.
You realize, okay, maybe it's because you're not a defense guy. 2 sacks through 3 games is a lot.
All right.
Because it's hard to get sacks. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, it's whatever. Hit me up on FB_playbook if you disagree on that one. Because, the numbers show it. 10 sacks is a lot. And he's got 2 already. We'll talk about that later. Martin, David Johnson. That's a name. Go ahead. Do it. What are you going to do? Would you impress at all?
No. 13 carries, 23 yards, 1.8 average per carry. He did have a touchdown though, so there.
So wait, hold on. So Martin, I wanted to try and find. If you can tell me where to find this, I tried to find the exact sequence of his plays where it showed how many yards he lost because I'm pretty sure he lost 30 yards in the second half, straight up.
Which is terrible.
He played really good in the first half. Which, by the way, Jekyll and Hyde version of the Houston Texans offensive line. They played really well in the first half. And then all of a sudden forgot how to play football in the second. T.J. Watt, I think, had 2 sacks when it was all said and done. The wild part was the Steelers dropped their pressure rate from 54 to 25 versus the Texans. So, and honestly, Martin, you look at that, they dropped the pressure rate, and what did Deshaun Watson do? He was tearing them up, and then the second half of the game, they brought the pressure rate back up. And then that's when they started disrupting the offense. So it's if you give him time, we all suspect, if you give Deshaun Watson time, he will find a way to beat you in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, he also had a crazy-ass juke of all 4 defensive linemen for the Steelers at one point. But
yeah, I did see that. I saw that
play. Yeah, it was wild. It's like he was teleporting from one spot to another. It was crazy. But yeah, man, it was not a good showing. In the second half, they lost by a touchdown, and that's against a playoff team. You would say the Steelers were a playoff team, right?
Yeah, they're my Super Bowl pick. And after seeing them barely beat the fucking Texans by 7, I'm officially on worried watch for my Steelers because through 3 games,
So Martin, through 3 games they've played the reigning Super Bowl champ, AFC title contender. I'm sorry. Really high. What we calling them? What we calling the Ravens? Super Bowl.
I don't know. After Monday Night Football, I don't know.
So you saw them lose to the best team in the NFL, and you're like, I don't know if these guys are good anymore. Anyway,
that's not that. I just don't know. They lost. They didn't play well. That's the thing. When you don't play, it's one of the problems with the Texans. They don't when you don't play as well as the other opponent. You don't look like it's just part of the problem. The Steelers had 3 times as many quarterback hits as the Texans did. They're just doing nothing on defense at this point. And
Which you cannot say about the Ravens last night. The second half defense was pretty
they stepped. That's the thing. Their defense stepped it up. Our defense doesn't even know what a fucking ladder looks like to step up, dude.
So we move on. We talk about the Ravens, one of the best teams in the NFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steelers are your Super Bowl pick. So that's 3 of the best teams in the NFL. They've come out 0-3. They now play the Minnesota Vikings coming up. The Steelers, from what I understand, got a pretty tough one for the next 3. So we will find out. But yeah, Big Ben's arm, the big takeaway from that one, Big Ben's arm was super inaccurate because he still got the cannon. The cannon is just not very precise. Like if you were trying to hit a wall with a football, he's got you. But if you're trying to hit a teacup inside of a room, not so much. Like he's gonna still hit the wall. There was a lot of plays that were left on the field for the Steelers for sure. When it comes to offense, I like to attribute that to some successful coverage from the Houston Texans and also some good luck from Big Ben's arm inaccuracy because he overthrew wide receivers by like 10 yards, Martin. So either he's horribly inaccurate or the Texans are disrupting the routes of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who knows? Time will tell, I guess. Anyway, O-line pressure, I said they already played really badly. Also, there is a video out on Twitter that the Steelers clearly knew every single time the Texans are going to run the ball.
Which is on first down?
No, it's not. It was not first down. It was like they had a tell sign. It was a tell of formation, and every time they did it, the Steelers sent a nickel corner to blitz, and it took up the lead blocker, and then they let the D-line and the linebackers scoop up David Johnson, and it worked to perfection. That's the elite level defense that the Steelers have. That's how good those dudes are. And literally, Martin, it's every single run play from the Texans, second half, and every single time it's the same thing. So hopefully the Minnesota Vikings don't figure whatever that tell was out because that means the Texans can no longer run the football anymore, which is a problem for some people. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I've mentioned that I'm a little worried about my Steelers pick as Super Bowl champions. Let me bring up their schedule now. Giants 26-16, Broncos 26-21, Texans 28-21. So they're not blowing anybody out, but they're just doing enough to win, and that's what I'm most worried about. But we're not here to talk about the Steelers, Asher. We're here to talk about the Houston Texans. We both grew up in Houston, and this is what I have to say before you get into your absolute before you go cray cray. Let me just say this. At times, from what I saw, which was obviously just when the red zone would tune in, the Texans looked competent on offense at times. The defense is so inconsistent and so bad at tackling that they brought in Earl Thomas and then decided, and then today, I don't know if you saw it, they decided as he was getting ready to head to the workout, told him, we're good. We don't want you to be. And
Martin,
I think we all agreed.
I think that's something else. I think that's something else.
Yeah, I think they saw the jokes.
Else going on with. No, I think there's something else going on with Earl Thomas. But
yeah,
if you know, hit me up on Twitter, FB_playbook, because I know that Texans are bad at making decisions, but I don't think they're that bad where they're just like, yeah, we're going to pass on this obviously very good football player.
Yeah.
Because if that was the case, J.J. Watt, Deshaun Watson, and a flurry of other dudes wouldn't be here. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the Texans.
Martin, do you think it's something else, or do you think it's like incompetence from Bill O'Brien?
I don't know. They brought him in because obviously, I don't know who said it. It was it seemed to be a bit of a panic move from the general manager to get a big name in and try and right the ship, even though the secondary isn't the real problem with the Texans. We all know it's letting DJ Reader go and not having a replacement for him, and the fact that their top draft pick from this past year, Ross Blacklock, who you and I actually covered in high school, was inactive for this game, and they wouldn't say why he was inactive, and we all know the reason why.
It's because J.J. Watt said all that.
Yeah, it's because he hasn't clicked with J.J. Watt. He's on the outside looking in, and when your coach and general manager decides to pay $100 million to their defensive end, they're going to fucking listen to every word he says, even though we're paying Deshaun Watson $160 million and trading his fucking best asset. Anyways, we move on. Speaking of the assets at the wide receiver position for the Texans.
And also still letting Kiki QT play.
Which is fucking wild. They have, so we've got, I keep saying we like I'm a fucking Houston Tech. They have Cooks, Fuller, Cobb, and Stills. But they still continue to run the offense that's trying to establish the run when they should be running spread as you and I know, what's called the run and gun. And I've put in quotations in here that Ashton can see. They need to be running an offense like the Cardinals or Chiefs run, not
No.
what the fuck they are
So
running. David
so
Johnson made his name catching the ball out of the backfield. He was a dual threat running back. He runs and he fucking catches. David Johnson through 3 games has 4 targets in week 1, 4 targets in week 2, 3 targets in week 3. Why the fuck are you not putting him in his best position to succeed? Why the fuck do they continue to try to establish the run when that is not the fucking like highlight of this offense this season? The running game is fucking terrible. Why are we continuing to try and establish the run? Throw the fucking ball 60 goddamn times. You have a $160 million quarterback.
So my biggest discrepancy with that is I mean he only had 13 carries, right? And then
And he
also
averaged 1.7 yards per carry.
and I think this is evident of like you watching Red Zone. I disagree heavily on like the spread. Like I'm seeing, and we could probably look at the numbers on this, man. There are more 3 and up wide receiver sets than there have been in like the last 2 years combined together for the Texans. So I think that's just like I think that may be a product that you like watching the red zone. That's just me though. I did see David Johnson be utilized as the screen, not even that, the swing route for first downs on a couple of occasions as well. I saw a ton, by the way. So like to your point, Deshaun Watson led the NFL this week in like deepest average target.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's targeting dudes deeper down the field. Like that's one of those things where it's like that's my biggest thing with like Houston Texans fans because they think it's the same team from last year and it's actually not. Like it's not even close to what they were running last year. It's still them going through like a whole new offense. It's obviously Deshaun Watson being slow on reads, right? Like he's in a situation where he's got totally new plays against defenses that he knows what's coming, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he knows where the gaps are in them. So I think as time goes on, it gets better. You can see it as evident of who got involved with the game as it went on. Like Randall Cobb had multiple catches he had multiple catches beyond 10 yards. Brandon Cooks had multiple catches that were beyond 10 yards. And he even got DeAndre Carter mixed in there a little bit. He got both of the tight ends mixed in for the Houston Texans, including Akins, which I think underutilized part of this team, but we can talk about that some other time.
I agree.
But
they have like 6 tight ends on the roster, and
yeah,
not one of them gets more than 5 catches a game, dude. It's fucking insane.
My biggest disagreement is with the lack of short yardage plays. There's not a short yardage route on a lot of the plays that are being called, and it shows because Deshaun has to like basically their option is, oh man, we don't have anybody who ran a curl route. We don't have anybody who's sitting down in the zone somewhere for you to just nail them for like 5 yards or whatever. Like you said, like what the Chiefs do on a consistent basis. When things downfield don't work within like 2 or 3 seconds, they already have somebody who's cutting inside. That's how Sammy Watkins killed the Ravens because every time the Ravens had everybody covered deep downfield enough that Patrick didn't feel safe enough throwing it downfield, Sammy Watkins was just coming out of his break towards the first down marker and at full speed. You know what I mean? So that I think there's changes that are happening objectively from what I'm seeing from the Houston Texans. It's just not happening as fast as people would like it. And it may be because it takes a little while when you replace the entire wide receiver core and have a new offense. Plus, also another thing to talk about offensive line. I said that they had a poor performance. 0 pressures were surrendered from Titus Howard and wow, why did I just space on his name?
Laramie Tunsil?
Left tackle. Yeah, 0 pressures from Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. So that was a good sign. They had some good moments. They didn't put together a full game. And Frosty Nugs hit me up after the game was over and on Twitter. He was harassing me, as he always does, as I was expecting, because I deserve that when I go out there and I'm like, the Texans are good, and then they lose by a touchdown to a team that I personally don't think is all that good. That's just me. Fact of the matter is, man, they are looking better every single week, and that's saying a lot. And once again, like you said before, their schedule is just insane. So
that shouldn't be a pass though. That like the fact that they are playing a tough schedule.
I'm not saying it's a pass. I'm saying it's a factor, right?
I just this team was 24-0 up on not this team, but like a majority of this team was up 24-0 on the Chiefs.
Y'all still talking about that, huh?
Yes, because that's
Y'all
where
still
we're still in the same year. That happened in January. Like they were 24 to
January.
0
Yes,
up.
I remember January 5 years ago.
Dude, like it just
With the way 2020. Oh,
I,
by the
I
way,
understand. Like, dude, it's just
I'll take this moment while you're shitting on the Texans to unveil my hottest take of the century. The
yeah. Here,
Texans are actually the best team in the AFC South.
you
Like hands
buried the
down.
lead. This is what you were supposed to go. Like this is what you were
And
supposed to say
By the
first.
way, Martin, don't try and tell me you haven't entertained the thought in your mind.
Oh, not at all. That the Texans being the best team in the AFC South, bro. No,
So
no.
you tell. All right, all right. So the Tennessee Titans have beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Minnesota Vikings, and who? Oh, the Denver Broncos by a combined 6 points. The Indianapolis Colts, and we'll talk about what happened in their game later. Half of their points came from their defense this past weekend.
Something the Texans have never fucking done in their lives.
But once again, if you took away their defensive touchdowns, they had 2 pick sixes and a safety. Martin, how often does that happen in an NFL game?
Dude, trust me, I played against the Colts in a fantasy league. I fucking can't stand the fact that what they just did to the Jets.
So we'll talk about that.
So salty.
Oh, the Jags, and then the Jags are the Jags.
Yeah, the Jags are probably I mean, if you want me to be honest, the Jags are the worst team in the division. That
I think the Colts are the worst team in the division, but we'll talk about that too. The Jags are inconsistent, like to like erratically inconsistent. Because if we are to believe the Tennessee Titans are good, why can they hang with the Tennessee Titans but not be able to hang with the Miami Dolphins? And I get it, it's a divisional matchup to a non-divisional matchup, but the Miami Dolphins are supposed to be trash, right? They're supposed to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Anyway, I think that first of all, the Tennessee Titans are frauds. Second of all, the Texans are the best team in the AFC South.
All right. I mean, they're 0-3 and have
I'm telling you right now, they are the best team in the AFC South, and it's like, and I'm not gonna be wild about this. It may not even be close. It may not. The only team that can compete with them right now, probably the Tennessee Titans.
That's a wild take. That's all I'll say. Like that is.
All right. As we go along in these breakdowns, everybody who's listening at home, when we get to each team in the AFC South and I describe what happened to them this past weekend and what's happening in the past 3 weekends, you tell me if that sounds like they're better than the Houston Texans, who by the way scored 4 fewer points than the Ravens did versus the Chiefs. If you don't think that's a factor in what's happening, that's insane. They literally played the same opponent with the same stakes. It's an early regular season game, and it says something when the Ravens, for all the amazing plays that they made last night, despite them not being all congruent and together, scored 4 more points than the Texans did. Moving on, the Baltimore Ravens are second in the AFC North. They're 2-1 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Martin, did you actually like this game? Did you enjoy this game?
No, because I just want to get this out of there.
Back and forth. And
well, no, the no crowd sound for the first quarter and a half, it felt like I was watching a sporting event in a vacuum, and I didn't like it. Obviously, that's to do with like COVID and everything, but everyone else has been pumping in crowd noise, and I went.
ESPN's is different than
I don't know
else's.
what it was, because by the time the first half ended, they were pumping in crowd noise, but they were doing it at like the wrong time. They had like a
no. I know what you're talking about. They had a sack.
Yeah.
Or no, it
went out of bounds.
Third down.
Yeah.
And it was like 5 seconds late. Yeah.
And then it was there was one where they like did a huge celebration on just a regular ass tackle. It was like the sound person had never like pumped in sound before, and everybody knows that NFL teams pump in crowd noise. So
yeah, but
I was not a fan of like that at all.
They never make a big deal about that because like at least once a year 2 teams get fined for it.
Yeah, even though everybody does it. Like it's kind of like smashing a trash can.
The Colts do it all the time. Yeah, the Colts do it all the time, and the Falcons do it all the time.
Yep.
Because they're in closed arenas. Yeah. And nobody can tell the difference between their fans yelling in the crowd. Anyway, go ahead.
Being somebody that has been a season ticket holder for the Texans for the past 14 years or whatever it is, I sit literally underneath one of the fucking speakers. Yeah. I know for a fact the Texans pump in crowd noise, and there's no fucking denying it.
Quick question. Do you think it's a person holding a microphone up to the crowd that's in the stadium?
No, it is.
Or do you think it's like
recorded,
actual noise recorded and put into the stadium?
It's recorded and like pushed up as it goes. So like they could change the decibel. Like the NFL had to create a rule for this season for where their decibel levels could be. So they already
because as soon
know.
as they said like you can have artificial noise, they was like, "Oh baby, we've been waiting for this moment."
Yes.
They got multiple tracks. They were like, "Oh man, we got recordings from when Justin Timberlake was in town 2 years ago."
Yeah, dude, it's wild. Like there's definitely like a recording of like NRG being at its loudest. Because I'm not gonna lie, when
should
NRG
be
is
first of
rocking,
all, as a team, you should record every
oh,
moment that it is
for
at its
sure.
loudest for
Oh,
sure
fuck yeah.
for
But
posterity.
NRG, when that shit's rocking, it is one of the best stadium atmospheres I've ever been in. When
Side note, shout out to the Las Vegas Aces going back to the WNBA finals again with the MVP Asia Wilson leading them there. Anyway, go
yeah,
ahead.
so the Chiefs win by 2 touchdowns. People that were betting the over and under on this game, I don't know if you've seen the posts on social media, Ashton. It was set at 54 and a half. The
Yeah.
game finished at 54. So and people were begging, I believe it was the Chiefs or the Ravens, whoever had the ball last, to kick a field goal. It didn't happen. The Chiefs were on fucking fire in the first half. And
So what you're saying is Vegas is in mid-season form.
dude, Vegas nailed that one, and I can only imagine the amount of money that swung on it. But game story: Chiefs on fire in the first half. The Ravens woke up in the second half. Mark Andrews. This one, I'm not gonna say the entire loss is on Mark Andrews, but boy, did he have some drops and some
Bro,
very
like that
in the end
that first
zone.
half, it was weird because he dropped a crossing route at
Hmm.
one point, and I was like, isn't that like the third time I've seen him drop something? And
Yep.
he dropped a touchdown because the dude like he did the difficult part. He beat the corner, had the ball in his hands as he was falling backwards, and I didn't even see, like on the replay. I don't think somebody like hit his hands. I think he just like flat out dropped that thing.
Yeah.
Like that
He
was wild.
butterfingered it.
They had to bring in Jack Doyle.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. Like that's wild. But yeah, Mark Andrews, I want to say it was 5. I want to say it was 5 drops, man, and he had 5 catches or 7 catches or something like that. That's
No,
insane.
he had his line. Let me bring it up here. 3 catches for 22 yards on 8 targets, but he could have had 8 catches for like 100 yards in a touch. But unfortunately, he just
By the way,
was it Monday Night Football
yeah.
jitters? I don't know.
After last night, the Baltimore Ravens are now up to 3rd in the NFL in pressures. Pressure rate, 35%. That's a lot of plays, man. And you and I were talking about it too, man. It didn't matter how many they sent, they just couldn't get to him. It was insane. And they were moving so quickly. It's hard to believe that they were moving so quickly. It was hard to believe that they made any shift adjustments while the game was going on. It seemed like it was just their base protection. And it was like, hey, they got too many coming. You know what the deal is. Like, you got to get it out quick. They had some good running back blocking, and they had a good tight end. They had Travis Kelce helping out with the blocks too, man, and he killed him out there as well.
Yeah, shout out to Travis Kelce, who's the newest member of my fantasy football team in my main money league. I traded for him last night. Ashton, tell me, let's just go off on a tangent really quick. I just want your take.
We're a Travis Kelce podcast now. Because,
yeah, we're
we
Travis.
saw him dancing at UGK.
All right, so this is the trade, Ashton. I'm giving up CeeDee Lamb, Darren Waller, and Myles Gaskin for Travis Kelce, Ronald Jones, and Brandon Ayuk. What do you think?
Yeah, how'd you hustle that person?
He offered it actually.
He must be desperate.
Yeah, he's in last place and hasn't scored like more than 120 points. He's in the spot where he's already given up on the season, and so he's trying to get keepers, and so he really wanted CeeDee Lamb, and so I told him I'd slept on it. First thing I did this morning when I woke up is click accept because now I've got DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce on the same team, so.
Yeah, man, I don't know what to say about that one. That's wild.
It was a weird. When I saw the offer, I was like, "Are you sure about this, bro?" Like I texted him. I was like, you sent me this offer, right? Like you can't go in the group chat and say that I colluded or anything. You send it to me. So yeah, Travis Kelce is.
I don't know how you don't veto that, but all right.
We technically don't. We've had so much drama in this league because it's 13, 14, 15 years old. I can't remember how long we've been doing it now, but there's been so much drama about like collusion and Like basically veto. I don't even know what the word is. Like veto bombing just to veto somebody. That we've
Yeah.
kind of taken out the whole vetoing thing in and of itself. But Travis Kelce, welcome to my team. Hopefully you continue to dominate like you have done for past few seasons and so far they're this week. The Ravens, on the other hand, Ashton, my biggest takeaway from it, and I believe ESPN put this stat out, or no, it was NFL Research tweeted this out. Since Lamar Jackson was drafted by the Ravens, they
That
are.
is it. So that stat you're about to read is inaccurate.
Oh, it's inaccurate.
Yeah, so it's not 10
Oh,
and 0. It's 6 and 0.
oh, okay. So
It's 0 and 6.
yeah, okay.
He
So
he didn't start in 4 of those games. The other one 4 of those games
oh,
were
okay.
started by Joe Flacco.
Gotcha. So NFL Research, anyways, still not a good stat to have is the quote unquote MVP of the league. Since Lamar Jackson was drafted, the Ravens are 0-6 when trailing at halftime and are the only team without a win after trailing at home in that span. And I put this in quotation marks, Ashley. I don't know if you saw it or not. Even the Jets have gotten a win after trailing at halftime in the past couple of seasons. How long has
Side
Lamar been
note.
in the league? For 3 years? Even the Jets have done it, and the Jets are the laughing stock.
So the other thing the counter to that is he's also 20 and 0 when he has a first half lead.
Yeah, which is wild.
So he's also undefeated
But
if
they're
he
just
has you
not.
down.
I mean, when you are a run first, like an actual run first team that pounds the rock, you're obviously not gonna. I mean, I texted you this. No one's gonna be scared of Marquise Brown and Willie Snead. Like, there's no. They don't have an outside. I mean, yeah, Marquise Hollywood Brown, he can fucking burn anybody, but
You know what they're supposed to be afraid of? It's Mark Andrews all over the place, but he couldn't
exactly.
catch last night.
Yeah, it was just one of
So
those weird games. Two different teams, both on the first. The Chiefs kind of did the Chiefs just put the brakes on at halftime and we're like, all right, we're just gonna get out of
no
here
man,
as like as injury free as possible.
because their game plan changed drastically from the
Yep.
first half to the second half. And honestly, Martin, I think what I thought was going to happen to the Ravens defense actually happened to the Chiefs defense. It must have been they were tired.
Hmm.
It must have been. Like there's no way because and I may be off on this because I haven't seen the splits. I'd be interested to see what the zone man split was in this game because if the Ravens played zone that entire first half so that they could send pressure and Patrick just split that whole time, which by the way, they got to him a couple times, right?
Yeah.
They had 2 sacks that he squeezed out of. He had the pocket collapse around him multiple times. He got sacked in the second half, and it just wasn't enough to completely disrupt all the drives, right? It wasn't enough to stop the train. But there's something to be said about like they spent that whole time sending Tyreek Hill, sending Mecole Hardman, sending Sammy Watkins, bombing them down the field, and then the second half runs around and they may have been out of gas.
Maybe.
It's hard to believe that that's the case because and on top of that, like the offensive line played worse in the second half than they did the first half. So maybe what I thought was going to happen to the Ravens defense because they sent so much pressure, I thought they were going to get tired. I thought they were going to be done.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. But yeah, I maybe that's what it was because as soon as they started running the ball, the Ravens knew that was going to happen. They got a couple of big runs off, but for the most part, they shut down Clyde Edwards in the second half.
Yeah. Did you also see they called out Louis Riddick for drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which Twitter was getting pissed off that that's how like apparently that's how you actually say his name, or like they were trying to figure out why the Monday Night
Helaire?
Football.
Yeah.
No, it's Helaire. Like apparently you have to like emphasize the E and there's no H. It's real like Twitter was losing their mind over it because Steve Levy and the whole crew they didn't say anything about it. They just started the game calling him Edwards-Helaire and never addressed it. But
by the way,
Louis Riddick drafted him in first overall in the famous ESPN Warm Room League, and they were like, "Why did you do that?" And he's like, "I don't have an answer for that."
Yeah, so the number one thing I want to point out is if you know anything about broadcasters, they take pride in not only getting names right, but also knowing how to pronounce names that you don't know how to pronounce because just because you say it that way doesn't mean it's the case. Like John Anik does it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
John Anik for the UFC, he's the main broadcaster, main play-by-play guy since Goldberg is gone, and in Vegas, I'm assuming just getting wasted every single day because he has like that gambling money plus the UFC money or whatever. But I think that happens all the time. Like people try and be like, most of you have seen How I Met Your Mother. You've seen that episode when he tries to say encyclopedia
Encyclopedia,
because
yeah.
encyclopedia. So yeah, it's one of those things, man. Same thing with, it's really funny. He got busted for like saying that name like overpronounced, but then shortening Patrick Mahomes' name during the broadcast, and
Yeah. His
Patrick Mahomes' mom got mad.
Yeah, and his mom got put on the broadcast. It's like that's how. All right, so when you ask me like how my feelings on the game, that's how it was at one point. It was such a, I'm not gonna say a bad game, but such a opposite of what we were all expecting game that they had to bring Patrick Mahomes' mom's tweet on camera and talk about it because there was like it was literally like, all right, is it really going to be a blowout? Like, are we really going to sit here and watch the Chiefs drop 70 points? But my last take here, Ashton, and I know there's been some great
Wait,
offenses.
hold the fuck up. So Frosty Nug's been writing in the chat the whole time, and nobody's been reading it out to me.
Where?
So yeah, Frosty Nugs wrote, Mama McNair stepped on the Earl Thomas thing. Interesting. I don't know who that is, but talking about Cal McNair's mom. Anyway, who knows?
Why is my
Go
chat?
ahead.
I don't see that.
Yeah, he wrote like a bunch of stuff while we were doing the broadcast. Anyway,
Oh,
sorry about
my
that.
bad. Yeah,
Sorry
my
about
bad.
that, Frosty.
My bad, Frosty. I didn't. I'm gonna refresh my page real quick, Ashton. Pause if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else that you're downloading this podcast. Just give me 1 second while I figure out why the chat is gone. Oh well.
So I'll do my Ravens, and I'll talk about it right here.
Go for it.
I got sucked into the onslaught in the first half and thought that the lead was just like insurmountable. And then this has happened multiple times when I've been watching NFL games. I get sucked into like a team is up. Like it looks like it's a lot. It's 21-7. I was like, well, if they score one touchdown, then they're only down by one touchdown. So that happened with me with the whole Ravens thing. They scored that touchdown in the second half, and I was like, oh wow, okay, hold on a second. This is like a doable situation for them if they run at the same pace that they just showed. But as we talked about before, the kind of pressure that was put on both of those quarterbacks, to be honest with you, one more so than the other. No other quarterback could survive. Like Cam Newton is probably the only other. Cam Newton and Russell Wilson are the only two other guys that I can see doing what Patrick Mahomes did last night in that high pressure situation. Where when I say high pressure, I mean the blitz pressure that was coming from the opposing team, and still be able to come out with dubs on that one. So the Ravens' technique and what they utilized last night is going to work on like 98% of the league. Now, is it going to be a problem like come later on in the season? Who knows?
Yeah.
Because will it be a problem in the AFC Championship game? Don't know. We'll see. But last night, you can't let that be the defining factor for the Ravens and whether or not they're Super Bowl contenders. Because one, you don't know who they're going to get when it comes to the playoffs. You never know what assignment they're going to get when it comes to the playoffs. And also, we are 14 weeks away from the playoffs right now. We'll be in a whole new world in 14 weeks. We may have discovered the cure for cancer and built flying cars by then, but more than likely, the aliens will have invaded by then, and they'll have to cancel the NFL season. Speaking of cancel the NFL season, Titans out here fucking up. Another reason I know that the Texans are the number one team in the AFC South. The Titans probably not going to play this weekend. I'm just kidding. They are supposed to play this weekend. According.
Yeah, I had an article I was going to bring up when we talked about it.
Yeah.
The NFL's trying everything it can do to get this game played, which
and to their credit, they're trying to isolate those people, right? They're trying to get those people out of the building and make sure that they didn't infect anybody else by surfaces, which if you look at the research on like coronavirus and surviving on surfaces, it has to be like an immediate skin to skin touch type situation, which in football is a lot of skin touching skin all the time. So hopefully everybody's going to be all right. Hopefully everybody who tested positive is going to be safe. And same thing for the Vikings, because I heard the Vikings had to shut down their facilities until Saturday as well, which will mean that it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for them on Sunday, man. I'm telling you right now. No other, like I said, with the Ravens situation, no other QB is going to be able to survive what Patrick Mahomes did. So I think the Ravens are going to be in a really good spot going here forward. And then the Ravens, man, offensively, dude, that was an interesting result of how that all shook out. And Martin, you can probably attest to it. It seemed like they kind of mentally broke the Ravens because they weren't able to get what they wanted. And then in the second half, they played a lot better than the first, hands down, no question about it whatsoever. They were able to string together multiple plays to actually be somewhat successful, but for the most part, it was still a little bit more the same when it came to key moments. If you look at their last possession, they got into a bad spot. they had him on the ropes, and then they had 3 bad plays in a row. They got called for a first down. They gave up a sack, and then Lamar threw it to Miles Boykin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Threw it to Miles Boykin in the end zone. Miles turned around and didn't seem like he had a plan for attacking the ball because the corner was out there. It was one-on-one. It was a perfect situation, and it makes me wonder, like, if that's a different wide receiver, if there's a different result.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh,
100%.
shout out, by the way, shout out to Devin Duvernay, UT's own Sasha, Texas.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that city's name, but yeah,
but
that was a
shout out
nice
to him,
return.
man. Yeah, that was that. If you look at it in the first half, that's how bad it was. The only offensive touchdown they scored was off of that. So yeah, that's all I had on the Ravens, man. Don't let Monday Night Football define them against the number 1 team in the NFL, because you can't let any game that, unless you're in the Super Bowl, you can't let losing to the Chiefs define your season, right?
Yep. Before I get to my final take, you mentioned that they kind of broke the Ravens. It definitely. So Lamar Jackson's got this like Joe Cool kind of attitude, and he definitely looked pissed off. And it's good to see that he's pissed off. But he was like, some of the sacks and some of, like, especially late in the game when they were trying to come back, and there was that sequence of events where they got a first down. I want to say like in about the 20-yard, like in the red zone, and by the time, like, he gets a sack. And then on the third down play, he's trying to scramble. Or no, you and I texted about it. The right tackle didn't even touch the defensive end or whoever came off the edge.
It was a dual speed rush off the edges, and they like made a perfect diamond.
Yeah.
So like the they didn't even have to run the edge. They didn't have to run around the world, which is the drill that you see at the combine where they make the guys do the double rip move and then run in a circle to see how fast they can get around the edge. They literally just went straight diamond point to Lamar Jackson, and
wild.
Then the rest of the pocket caved in because they weren't ready. Somehow in the hurry up offense, the offense wasn't ready. So
and it was like watching the replay. It almost seemed like the right tackle for the Ravens was expecting a tight end to be there to bump the guy. But there was no tight end there, and it was
they were
really
going 4
weird.
wides. They went 4 wides
on
that one.
Yeah, weird to see. Last take here, really quick, Ashton. We've seen a lot of great offenses, you and I, in our lifetime. We're kind of in the golden age of offense and scoring, but what the Chiefs did in just the first half alone, and this is going to be blown out of proportion, I think, but I remember thinking this, like, especially in the first half, and through what we've seen through the first 3 weeks, and if you take in the Super Bowl winning season, this is the best offense I've seen since the greatest show on turf, which for the youngins out there is the 1999 St. Louis Rams.
Yeah, man, it's going to be fun to see because, honestly, man, the all-22 for this game is going to probably be the most prized possession of any coach because I think the Ravens figured something out. Like what they did I think the Ravens, because the only issue is like nobody else has the Ravens type personnel to be able to pull off what they did last night. But what they did had some sort of effectiveness to it, but they just allowed themselves to be affected by a Chiefs defense that looks like it's above average this year instead of what it looked like last year where they put the Chiefs offense in a bad spot where they had to kind of set the pace and everything like that. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of it because somebody out there is going to be smart enough to crack the code and they'll have enough time to figure it out. But anyway, we move on, man. Cleveland Browns, they're in 3rd place in the AFC North. They took on the Washington Football Club, who was 1-2. By the way, NFC East may be the worst division of football, but we'll talk about that later. 34-20. 34-20 was the final score in this one. The game story here, Martin, this is a bad win.
Yep.
The Browns generated 5 turnovers and they won by 2 touchdowns. They also allowed a comeback at one point during this one. So the bad win is the Browns should have lost this game. They had damn near the same stats as the Washington Football Club did. So here it is. On 3rd down, Washington 5 for 11. Browns 5 for 14. They were actually worse on 3rd down than the Washington Football Club was. This is yards per play, 5.0 for the Browns, 4.8 for Washington. They had more passing yards than the Browns did in this game, which, you can beg the question of like, oh, Ashton, you know what the Browns are about this year. They have a dual threat running game. They don't need to pass the ball. But you'd like to imagine if you have your foot on the gas and everything like that, you want to stay as balanced as long as possible until you have to become one-dimensional, right? That's the point. That's how you set up a run game to be efficient. So Washington had more total yards in this game, by the way, too, Martin. Browns had a yard split. Here it is right here. 158 rushing, 142 passing, and they have a style where they got to ride it until the wheels come off. This is the only thing that they can do. They are a one-dimensional team in terms of how they can win football games. So does that sound like a team? They went almost number for number, stat for stat across the board and stole away 5 possessions from the opposing team, Martin.
Yeah.
5 possessions away from the opposing team and won by 2 touchdowns. Does that sound like a good football team to you?
No, I don't know what the Browns would have to like win every fucking game going forward for me to even like start believing in them. Because what I wrote down here for the takeaway for this game, Ashton, is literally copy and paste what I've said from week 1 and week 2 about the Browns. They have the best running back combo in the league, which could be debatable with a couple of other teams who stepped up this past week, but this team goes as Baker goes. If Baker goes out there and has a decent game, I mean, 16-23, not a lot of yards, only 156 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, but I don't think he threw an interception, did he? Yeah, no interceptions by Baker, and no fumbles. So,
call that a win.
Yeah, there you go.
Just like that.
Congrats, you beat.
Call that a win, and we move on.
Yeah, exactly. You like you said. Go ahead.
5 turnovers is impressive. Martin, 5 turnovers. We got to start asking the questions about whose fault those turnovers are. Were they created by the defense, or were they just layups from the offense to the defense? And they just went out there and they made a very average play. You have to imagine with Dwayne Haskins throwing 3 interceptions, at least 2 of them are on him.
Yeah.
So I didn't get a chance to see the interceptions. I'm assuming all of them are on him in terms of like making a bad decision or whatever it is. And it's going to be interesting. That's all I'll say because I don't want to waste too much time talking about Washington. So.
Yeah, I can get through my take on Washington really quickly. We are officially on Kyle Allen watch. Haskins is kind of continues to prove he's not really.
If you watched any of the Panthers games last season, oh my God. By the way, somebody made me cringe because they mentioned, is it time to put in Alex Smith? And I wanted to reach through my phone and punch that person in the face. And I was like, don't you ever say anything about playing Alex Smith ever.
Yeah.
I will hunt you. I will come for you. Like, don't ever try and insinuate. Don't put that idea in anybody's head. So, that is that's what we got on Washington.
Hold on. He's completed less than 60% of his passes, despite having Scary Terry, or there's a couple other nicknames for him, Terry McLaurin, and Sims Jr., 2 competent wide receivers, but apparently he can't even throw them the ball to catch it. And it sucks the football team are always playing from behind, because I think a lot of people are in agreement that Antonio Gibson, he's kind of a stud. He's kind of, let me bring it up. He only had 9, like they're playing from behind so much. He only had 9 carries, Ashton, 49 yards and a touchdown. He also had a couple of catches, 3 catches for 11 yards, but his average per carry, 5.4 yards. That's what you want out of your running back, is to average 5 yards every single time he touches the ball. Nick Chubb on the other side of the field, 5.7. So, I mean, I think they've got something in Antonio Gibson. They just need to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, and I don't think Dwayne Haskins is the answer. I went back and looked. His completion percentage since he became the starter is under 60%, and it's just not very good. That's all I got to say about them. Oh, by the way, Washington actually has a shot to win the NFC East. That's
everybody's got a shot.
Yeah, because it's. So, I mean, the AFC South really and the NFC East by far the 2 worst divisions. We move on to a game that we could probably get through really quickly, Ashton, because there's only one thing that needs to be said. Cincinnati Bengals 23, Philadelphia Eagles 23. Both of them have a tie on their record, Ashton, but you and I both agree this is an L for the Eagles because Doug Peterson, their head coach, played for a tie. He punted in overtime.
Martin, it's not an L for that reason. It's an L anytime you had the Cincinnati Bengals being competitive with your team. So I will say this is maybe a little loose on this one. I got a chance to see this happen in high school. The Bush Broncos are a team that I saw this happen to. They played a high stakes game And after that game, they just fell off a cliff, like emotionally and structurally. They had a lot of talented football players, and they weren't able to continue forward into the playoffs, even though they were a playoff caliber team. That can be said for the Eagles based off just like you talk about highly traumatic events.
Mm-hmm.
Like last season was all trauma for everybody, right? Like that is like you go into the situation. Carson Wentz is throwing to different dudes every single week. Carson Wentz, by the way, had an MVP level season last year for just the sheer shit show that his team was and the ability to get that team to the playoffs. That is I still hold it to this day. That's Carson Wentz's best season
Mm-hmm.
I've seen out of him in the NFL. And maybe this is the regression. Maybe this is it, Martin.
Yeah,
And
29 of
it's a
47,
heavy one.
Ashton.
It's a
Not good.
heavy one, bro. Like it has to be exhausting at some point, right? Like some point you have to be tired. And the thing I wanted to bring up to you is, man, like, do you think that's a real thing? Because the number one thing that has defined the Eagles for the past like 4 years is resilience. They are the definition of like, things go wrong.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
I don't
I
think
think
they.
it's time to finally pay the price for all those years of
Yeah.
overcoming
Like,
all the insane odds, right?
what's the saying? The water is finally breaking the camel's back on this one. But we got to give a shout out to our boy Joey B on the other side of the on the other side of the field. 3 weeks took him 3 weeks in the NFL to not lose a game with what you and I both agree not the best team, and it is you and I are Texans fans, so we obviously see the Texans more than the Bengals, but we still agree that the Bengals have the worst offensive line in the NFL.
You know who
Um,
else agrees? Everybody else.
yeah,
Uh,
it's one of those things where you feel bad. Like I have Joe Mixon in 2 leagues, and I can't believe like I'm doing all I can to try and trade Joe Mixon, and I couldn't even get 2 pennies for him right now. That's how bad people think the offensive line is. But here's the other thing: we can we can we're not really trash or personally I'm not trashing the Bengals because I'm let me pull up their 3 games that they've played so far. So
so
this
they
is
played it. Yeah. Go ahead. I was gonna
16-13
say they played
loss.
a close one. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They
they've
played
played
close
all
ones.
close games, which when you've got a young quarterback and you've got not the greatest offensive line and you're playing everybody close, I don't think they've played bad in any of their 3 games. They're at that
It's
point
a
where they don't know how to win.
it's a huge step forward from what they did last year,
Oh
which
yeah.
is what you would
Oh yeah.
expect.
Yep.
And knowing that they're not done rebuilding that team if they ever do get to the point where it's rebuilt, because if you know anything about the Bengals, they hate to spend money, and if you ever want at some point when you want to get over the hump, you got to start paying people the money that they deserve.
Yep.
So that being said, I move on to one final thing. The Eagles have now thrown 2 interceptions in every single game they've played this season. Just wanted to put that out there. The last thing to take out of this one, actually some positive shit from the Eagles. Greg Ward Jr., former University of Houston quarterback, is killing it in the NFL, man. 8 catches, 72 yards, 1 touchdown, bro. Shout out to him. Miles Sanders, if you don't know who that is, he's the guy who backed up Saquon Barkley when he was at Penn State.
Yep.
And he basically got the Eagles to the point where they were okay with letting go of Jordan Howard, and that's why he's playing for the Dolphins now. And he had 18 carries, 95 yards in a game that was pretty bad because the Eagles once again lost another offensive lineman, Martin.
Yeah, so
Like
was it Jason Peters went down?
Yeah, it was Jason Peters, bro. Like he was able to walk off the field. Jason Peters has had like a ton of injuries the last couple of years, but he's been a part of the resurgence of the Eagles, and he's the backbone. He was one of those dudes you want to succeed because he was there during the bad times.
Yeah.
He was there when everything was the worst possible for the Eagles, and he held it down for them. But anyway, move on, man.
Yeah,
You got anything else?
well, just one thing. Since I called out Dwayne Haskins for his completion percentage, I've also got to bring it up for Carson Wentz. You got to round his number up to say that he's completing or that he's completing 60% of his passes. Right now, it's 59.8 so far this season, and I'm no numbers expert, but you don't want your quarterback getting anywhere in the 60s. You want 70 and up to be like average, right? Like Tyrod Taylor, I would be willing to guarantee he completes more than 70% of his passes. While Ashton, you bring up this next game, I'm actually going to go because I think you and or I don't know about you, but I think Tyrod Taylor is maybe like the line of being like completing passes and like being considered like good at your job compared to not being good at your job. So you bring up this next game, and I'm going to look up what Tyrod Taylor is actually completing with his passes.
So we move on to our next division. We just broke down everything in the AFC North. We move on to the AFC East, and one of the games that probably should have been in primetime, to be honest with you. Buffalo Bills taking on the LA Rams. It was 35-32. The Buffalo Bills are 3-0, and they've raised more questions than they've answered. The LA Rams are 2-1, and they have also raised more questions than they've answered. They are back at it like a bad habit. The Rams seem like they're back, and that's after they are better, but like not having Todd Gurley, but also somehow like Jared Goff is playing better football and they don't have Brandon Cooks anymore. It's like they got better by removing players, which is strange to say, but that's what it appears to be objectively. I will say this is the game story for this one. The Rams have another game taken away from them because of a fourth quarter defensive pass interference called on them. So they had, which by the way, I'll get to this point in my take at some point. Actually, it's like my only take on this entire game. It's the most frustrating part. The Rams came back and scored 29 unanswered points versus the Buffalo Bills because they were down by, I think it was 3 touchdowns at one point, and the Buffalo Bills almost got cooked. Atlanta Falcons / Houston Texans style, more Atlanta Falcons than Texans style, because the Falcons just like shut it down at one point during their comeback. But anyway,
really quickly here, Ashton, my Tyrod Taylor take, I was off by a couple of percentage points, but it still stands. If the people out there say that Tyrod Taylor is not a good quarterback, he is completed career 61.4%. So I was off by a couple of percentage, saying 70% with him, but Carson Wentz is playing worse than Tyrod Taylor. So for all those people out there that say Taylor is not a good quarterback or whatever, there's you must think that Carson Wentz isn't that good of a quarterback either. So there we go. But talking about the Bills and Rams game, like you said, probably should have been one of the primetime games, but or at least an afternoon kickoff game. I mean, what were they thinking putting this one as a noon kickoff? Two of the better teams in the NFL. Both were undefeated at the time. The Bills are somehow 3-0, Ashton. And this is like, you're still on the Texans band, like on the Texans ship, or the Texans fan island. I might end up being the last person on Josh Allen isn't a great island quarterback. And
oh yeah, no, I'm there with you.
Okay, great. I don't think he's that. I don't think he might be good. I don't think he's great. Yeah, he's got the 8 comebacks in fourth quarters. Yeah, all that. All right, that's great. He's the AFC version of Dak Prescott. His stats are through the fucking roof every game, right? Or every game so far this season, they've had some fucking. His stats have been. People are amazed by their. He's the first NFL quarterback to do this, and that. It's still coming down to the final possession. They're empty stats. That's why I don't think Dak's that great of a quarterback, because his stats are empty. They're Josh Allen and Dak, their teams are always in just this slugfest, and for some reason, despite putting up 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, the Rams lose by 3. Like, it just doesn't.
And it came down to a defensive play, a sketchy call by a ref. Yeah. But yeah, we talk about that, and we look at 35-2 is the final score here. Josh Allen is half as good and gets twice as much coverage or twice as much hype as guys who are better at what he does.
Yep.
Like, Josh Allen is a similar quarterback if you look at Patrick Mahomes, which I know is a reach, but you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Russell Wilson, you look at Cam Newton, you look at Deshaun Watson, you look at Kyler Murray, you look at Dak Prescott. They are all similar quarterbacks and get like. Martin, people act like Josh Allen's the second coming of Jesus, and it baffles me. Because, hey man, it's truly a sight to behold. It really is. He defies so many rules that people have in their head, but it's just one of those things, man. It's just really baffling to me. So if you got an explanation for why everybody just jizzes their pants over Josh Allen, even though he is many would say slightly above average.
Yeah, I mean, he's finally
getting better. I give him.
He has gotten better.
He's getting better. He is getting. No, Martin. I think he's in the process of still getting better. And in the NFL, that's damn near impossible.
There's something about him, man. Like, it's just. maybe it's because the first 2 seasons in the NFL, he barely completed 52% of his passes, and now he's up 20% so far through 3 games. But I'm just not a fan, dude. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it on anything. I just don't like watching him play quarterback, and like I don't know. It's when I look at, I mean, you look at the box score, and he's putting up these 24 or 33, which is pretty decent. 300 and fucking over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's getting rushing touchdowns as well, and his team's barely winning by 3. So it is what it is. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'll be the last person. I mean, I'll admit when I'm wrong if he wins the Super Bowl. I just don't think he's that great. I'm sorry. I
And
mean, all
the
the
number
Josh Allen
the
fans out there, Bills Mafia, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know what you. If I don't like Dak and don't think Dak's that great, I literally have to say that about Josh Allen as well. And if you give me Dak or Josh Allen, God, I don't know who I would pick. I would have to literally like sit there and think about that one.
So yeah, it's the obvious answer is that. But anyway, moving on. Moving on. The other thing to point out here is the Rams are looking really good, man. It's a combination of high quality defense and most importantly, their offensive line is healthy after missing both their right and left tackle most of last season, and having when they did play, having them play hurt. So that's a huge thing. That's a huge deal, and it's making a big difference right now. It makes me very wary of like what happens when they do get hurt at some point, because it is tough being an offensive lineman,
Yep.
and everybody gets hurt at some point during the season. Whether it be something that can prevent you from playing the game or not is up for grabs. But offensive line's looking good. Rams are looking good. They're playing really complete football. That's something to look forward to. Also, just makes the NFC West that much more difficult to win. If it's all said and done, Martin, let's be for real. We would love to send 3 teams out of the NFC West to the playoffs
Hmm.
right now, as the world we live in right now. And I don't know which one it would be. Would people like the 49ers or would they like the Cardinals? Because the Rams and the Seahawks are the number one team. Rams win the division and they get 2 more teams out of those 3. We'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
we'll get to the cards eventually. I'm still I still need some time to get over what happened, Ashton. So let's move on to the next game. Or do you have anything else that you want to say about this one?
Nope. Move on to the next one. We're still in the
This one's really
AFC East
quick.
here. Yeah, 36-20. The Patriots took on the Las Vegas Raiders. The New England Patriots are 2-1. The Raiders are now 2-1. So
Yeah,
they
Ashton.
are the same. They are the same, but they are very different.
Yeah, very, two totally different teams. We've got a meme or a GIF, however you fucking say the word, of that came out of this one, and it's Cam Newton. Everyone's trying to figure out what the fuck the guy sitting next to him said, and I'll give a visual representation real quick of what Cam Newton did on the sideline. If anyone's watching on twitch.tv/BrokeBoySports, he literally goes like this, all the way down, and is literally sitting on the ground, and it's the viral meme going on right now because you can literally put it to a lot of things. It's literally like, I can't believe this dude just said that. Without hurting Ashton's feelings, I saw somebody say, put it to the Texans are a good team, and him just sliding out, not believing it. So it was a really funny one. But Ashton, I've got a good joke. I think I've got a really good joke for my take on this one.
I don't like where this is going.
So Las Vegas,
Say something nice about the Raiders. I'm just kidding.
So
Go ahead.
Las Vegas, we can all say, played a really great game on Monday Night Football against the Saints, right? Like, it's safe to
Yeah.
say they played really well. So the Raiders blew their load on Monday Night Football, and this was the moments after you've just had sex where the other person wants to go again, and you're still sitting there trying to rally because you've literally just fucking you're all
Trying to rally.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
This is the rally game. You gotta find them.
exactly. Like, they just literally blew their load all over the Saints, and then you're asking them to come back again, like literally, like come back again and do it all over again against the Patriots. It ain't happening. I'm sorry. Round two,
Spirit is willing, the body is
like,
soft and squishy, as they said in Futurama.
like round one, round one of doing it, you you're at your peak. Round two, you fall off a little bit. It's not until round three, round four, when things start coming back online. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's my biggest takeaway. Other than that, Cam starting to realize he doesn't have to absolutely ball out to win. This offense is designed to take advantage of whatever the other team's weakness is every single week. It is the Bill Belichick special. They're not the same offense week 1 as week 2 as week 3. And as we've seen last week with the Raiders against Alvin Kamara, the Raiders really struggle against this old school term, Ashton, which you and I both know there's another word for Rex Burkhead. Scat backs. The Raiders just for some reason can't defend the scat back. If you're listening to this show and doing a NFL recap and you don't know what a scat back is, that's an interesting just position that you're in.
Many people would say that Rex Burkhead is a scrappy.
Yes,
they would say he's a hustler.
Yeah, he's got the intangibles.
He might also be a coach's son.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But yeah, no,
for anybody not knowing what we mean, Rex Burkhead's white and he plays running back.
And strangely enough, very fittingly enough for the
Boston.
New England Patriots.
Yeah. Those are my takeaways. The Raiders blew the load Monday Night Football against the Saints. They had to rally against the Patriots and couldn't do it. And there we go. That's my takeaway.
So the game story that I broke down here, the Raiders did lead at one point during this game. It was the opening drive where they kicked a field goal, and then the first drive for the Patriots took 12 minutes and 32 seconds. The Raiders scored 2 touchdowns in this game. They scored 1 in the second and 1 in the fourth. The Raiders wholeheartedly could not force the Patriots out of their style of play, and it showed very much so on defense. The Patriots generated 3 turnovers, which when it was all said and done, they took 3 of the 11 possessions that the Raiders had throughout the course of that game, which means they took away 27% of the opportunities the Raiders had to score points. A fourth of the opportunities for the Raiders to score points was taken away from them. Also, the Patriots are number 1 in pressure rate in the NFL. So, not a surprise there that they had Derek Carr shook to his very core. Also, Josh Jacobs, probably his worst game of the season. Hopefully the last one, because he rushed for under 100 yards, and he also fumbled the ball away at one point, and the Patriots recovered it. Moving on, the Dolphins played the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'll summarize it like this. We made this joke last Thursday before the game came on that Fitzpatrick was waving the wand around the top hat, and it was a question of whether or not something was going to come out when he tapped it. He pulled the rabbit out. Pulled the whole rabbit and maybe 6 other ones out of it too, because they eviscerated the Jacksonville Jaguars on Thursday, and apparently Miami is the Florida national champions. So yeah, there you go.
Or the battle. The
next thing here, Martin's got a joke about beards and mustaches apparently, so he'll get to that one.
This is about to get shaved off this week, Ashton.
100%. For some reason, that's interesting. Anyway, hold on. Martin's got to deliver this one. This is worth the wait, ladies and gentlemen, I would imagine.
Hello?
Oh, wow.
Hello?
Everything froze. That's not a good sign.
Ashton, hello?
Interesting.
We may have lost Ashton here, so...
I can hear Martin on the Twitch stream.
Okay, yeah. So Ashton seems to... Maybe if we disconnect the call, Ashton, and call back. Sorry, guys. We are having a little technical difficulty here. I'm going to go ahead and end the call with Ashton and call him back. But he was talking about the Dolphins and the Jaguars. And my biggest takeaway from this is obviously beards versus mustaches. Anybody that sees me right now, you can see that I've got quite the beard here. No mustache. I've got a little mustache, you know what I'm saying, but it's mainly a beard. And when we went into this game, it was a lot of back and forth talk between Gardner Minshew and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they had a little joke about the beard versus the mustache, and the beard ended out coming out on top. And Ashton, we might have Ashton back. Ashton, are you there? Can you hear me? It looks like Ashton's still having.
Yeah, Martin, I can hear you. I just am not sure if we're recording live anymore. I can hear you via the stream. I cannot hear you through my headphones.
Okay, so. I'm recording right now, so we'll be able to. I'll be able to send you the file once we get to the end of it, but that's going to be a couple of seconds delay as well.
But hopefully Ashton, we can just do that afterwards. But yeah,
Ashton, my takeaway. We don't really have a lot to say for the Dolphins Jaguars on Thursday night. We're both surprised at just how well the Dolphins played compared to how. I mean, we're both on the fence that the Jaguars aren't that good, but to get blown out literally 31-13 raises some questions. And to, dare I say this, Ashton, did the Jags lose this game on purpose simply to give Miami a win in the draft position? Because at the end of the year, the tiebreaker, if they're at similar records.
Martin loves him some football
Oh,
conspiracy theories.
I'm a huge conspiracy theorist. And Ashton, do you have anything else that you want to say about the Miami Dolphins and the Jaguars?
Oh no, we can definitely move on from to an actual better game, to an
Oh,
actual good game.
uh, so the next game we have on the list, I don't know if it was any better. Indianapolis Colts 36. They improved to 2-1 on the season, going up against the New York Lonely Jets at 0-3. This game can. Ashton's got a couple of stats that he wants to get into. My only takeaway is um, Ashton and I, or myself, I can't remember exactly what Ashton's take was on Mekhi Becton last week. He actually got hurt in this game, injured shoulder. The team at one point thought he tore his pec muscle, but is now just being listed as day-to-day with a shoulder injury. So thank goodness Mekhi Becton didn't get too injured.
Isn't that fun? Talking about tearing your pec muscle, it must be just a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, it's that's one of the injuries you hear. It's just like, oh, like, ah, shit, like, and especially after we hyped him up as being like the only good thing the Jets have going for them. Ashton, why don't you go ahead and hit us with your takeaways?
So when it comes down to the takeaways from this game, man, it was pretty cut and dry as to what the situation was. I will say this: Twitter's got me convinced that in some way, shape, or form, Sam Darnold may be good, and I don't like that. They're trying to trick me into thinking that Sam Darnold's good because I've seen back-to-back weeks where he's made some insane throw on the move into the end zone for a touchdown, or one where he's spun around in a 360 and then been able to find a target deep down the field just by slightly flicking that ball there. And it's hard to sit back and watch people like not entertain the idea that Sam Darnold could be a part and not a part of the problem at the same time. Adam Gase could be a part of the problem. They had a situation with the general manager earlier this season where they were out there and where they had the general manager go through all the free agency, fire him, then bring in a new general manager for the draft, which of course creates rifts and creates differences in terms of how the game is approached and how your team is built overall. But when it was all said and done, I took these things away from it. I give no credit and no points to the Colts on this one because this is one of the worst teams in the NFL. I will point out this: the Colts are kind of sus, a little sus.
Yeah,
the Colts right here. Let me break it down for you. They scored 36 points in this game in total. 2 touchdowns and a safety. 15 of those 36 points came from the defense. How many times in an NFL game will your defense provide you with 15 points? The answer is almost 0.
Yep.
So, putting that, I'm sorry, it's actually 16 points because the safety is 2 points. So,
oh yeah,
the Colts offense, on the other hand, provided 20 points off 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Don't know how many teams you're going to be able to beat in the NFL when your offense can put up 20 points against one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, I'm still out, Ashton. I don't know where I am on the Colts. I started the season thinking they were gonna like literally cakewalk the AFC South and everything, or be one of the better teams, and that's on me for believing in Philip Rivers, I guess. Like I was all in on the Colts offensive line, their defense. Obviously their defense stepped up well when they played the worst.
On me for believing in Philip Rivers.
Yeah, the Colts. The Colts are getting away with playing. Did they finish 4th or 3rd in the AFC South? I can't remember exactly where they finished. So they're getting to play some of the an easier schedule. 3rd, okay. So they're playing the 3rd schedule. So yeah, that's all I've got for that game. We can move on if you want to, or if you've got one last thing you want to say.
Oh, wait, hold on. Before we move on, sorry. I just want to give credit where credit's due. Shout out to the legend Frank Gore for holding it down for the Jets. 15 carries, 57 yards.
Yeah, not too shabby for a, what is he, 50 years old now, running back. He's basically staying in the league until he can play with or against his son, who's at Southern Miss right now. We move on as have been going through division by division. We get next to the AFC South, but they actually all played, so we've already covered their games. So really quickly, unless Ashton, he said during the Texans breakdown, they're 0-3, but he believes they're the best team in the AFC South. The Titans sit at the top 3-0. Colts 2-1, Jaguars 1-2, and so that is how things are playing out right now in the AFC South. We move on to the AFC West. The Kansas City Chiefs 3-0, the Raiders 2-1, and Ashton. This is a game you and I both had our eye on, and you texted me this as soon as the game was over. We may have been right about the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, man, they're not as bad as everybody thought they were going to be coming into this season, man. Wholeheartedly, their defense is nowhere near where it needs to be. Their defense isn't up to snuff. They gave up 16 points, which is pretty impressive. That's a low end amount of points to give up even to a rookie quarterback. But the fact of the matter is, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, very good football players. They are, and by the way, I just like to point out, I ain't hear nobody talking about Justin Herbert this week.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
saying.
it's very quiet right now.
Just putting it out there. A lot of you guys were over there complaining, talking shit about Tyrod Taylor. I ain't hear nobody talking about Justin Herbert this week. So the other thing that came out of this one, man, it was pretty impressive, like top to bottom, that they put together a complete game like that. They had 5 straight possessions at one point during this game that they scored consecutively. So it was pretty impressive to see what they were able to do as a whole, like wholeheartedly, because I mean, that's a team that's not supposed to win, according to everybody else, right?
Yep.
So they went out there and they played against a team, of course, different circumstances. Rookie quarterback is some extenuating circumstances, right? Rookie quarterback, second start ever, extenuating circumstances, but nonetheless, they went out there and they got the win without Christian McCaffrey. Like they went out there and they did the thing, and you got to be impressed with that, man.
Yeah, my takeaway from this one, Ashton, maybe they should wait until seconds, minutes before the game to let Herbert know that he's starting because, yeah, he put up a couple of stats. I believe he had another 300-yard passing game, but he was not that impressive as he was in the first game that he started. I mean, he had 330 yards with only 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a not very good rating. Teddy Bridgewater on the other side, 235 yards, touchdown, no interceptions, and the Panthers gave the like you said, they scored on consecutive drives, but a lot of those points were field goals, and the Panthers gave the Chargers every opportunity to steal this game and win. But if you go back and look at like the breakdown of the game on when the points were scored, it took the Chargers way too long to get going. They only had it was 18-7 at the halftime, and it just seemed like they were slow out of the gate. They were at home, which is weird. They didn't have to travel to the East Coast, so why it took them forever to get going, no one will know. And my last take on this one, really quickly, the Panthers won't be blowing out, I don't think, any team this season, but they will be in every single game. Like, have they played? Like, yeah, they've lost twice, Ashton, but this is another one like we talked earlier, like with the Bengals. Have they actually played bad in any of those 3 games?
Yeah, see, that's the thing, man. You look back, and I know what's gonna happen. Statistically, somebody's gonna go back and look at that game, that second game versus the Patriots, right? And they're only gonna see like, oh man, Teddy Bridgewater played like crap because he gave up those 2 interceptions. One of those was on a game tying drive, right? One of those interceptions truly, it was really bad. It was a bad throw. Second one is a mistimed situation due to some pressure that was generated by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that ended up killing a game-tying drive. So, like in context, those 2 interceptions looked terrible on the stat sheet, and they came at a bad time during the game. But nonetheless, that game was close. Like that game was in range and it was reachable. It was obtainable for them. And there's something to be said about like you got to pay attention to that. You got to respect that at some point and think about like this team isn't as bad. They're not as far off as a lot of people like to think they are, which means guess what? They may be out of the market to draft a quarterback at the top of the draft, like coming next year, man, which could put them in a prime position to fleece some of these teams for draft picks.
Yep.
like to get something to rip off some of these teams for draft picks when it's all said and done. But yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I'm done on that game. We can move right along to a game that I don't really have much to say about. Ashton, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go improve to 2-1 on their season after everybody was throwing in the towel after Week 1 when they lost to the Saints. They've now won 2 games on the trot, even though the schedule hasn't been too tough on them. They played the 0-3 Broncos now, 28-10. The Broncos playing with a backup quarterback, playing without their best wide receiver, lost Von Miller before the season started. So all I have to say to Vic Fangio and the Denver Broncos is please keep on losing. You need to get the best draft pick you can to get the best offensive lineman available at that time. Just go 0-16 if you fucking have to. Drew Lock needs protecting, and yeah, that's really it. How many times? Or this is what I wrote down as well, Ashton. How many times did we see Tom Brady and the Patriots start slowly to begin the season just to be one of the best teams in the league by the end of it? It's almost like a pattern for Tom Brady. Just slowly get it going, and things pick up towards the end of the season. And I think they're on the right track. And I don't know if you let me ask you real quick. Do you have this in the 10 things you need to know about Mike Evans' stat line?
No, go ahead.
2 catches for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of the most. It's only happened 3 other times in NFL history. The last one was in like the 80s, and the first time was in like the 60s. I can't remember exactly who the players were. I was listening to sports radio while driving to the store yesterday, and he was talking about this. It's just one of those crazy stat lines that a player has where he has 2 catches for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. It's wild.
Yeah, you don't see stuff like that very often. Also, you kind of get fleeced on the points if you're talking about like fantasy. You don't get any yards off of that.
Yep.
But whatever. The one thing I wanted to take out of this is that the Buccaneers are still clearly working through stuff, and they have the perfect schedule to be working through stuff. The next 3 games for them, they're playing the Chargers, led by a rookie quarterback that we just talked about that struggled with the Carolina Panthers. That once again, the Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady, struggled with as well. They're playing the Bears, now led by Nick Foles, right? And who knows what's going to happen within 2 weeks, right? Who knows where they could be as a team in 2 weeks? They have a really good defense that a lot of people don't really want to. A lot of people don't talk about secondary wise. And then the Packers, they lead up to a game against one of the best teams in the NFL. So they get like a little ramp up. They get to charge up, whereas some people are getting hit over the head. Some people are literally just like swimming in the gutter when it comes to like playing teams consistently. They're getting like a very balanced schedule, which is surprising to say because it you never know how the season's going to break, right? You never know how the schedule is going to break by the time that you go and face another team because there's no telling where the Packers could be in 3 weeks. There's no telling where the Chargers could be this upcoming week because if there's one thing that rookies come with great skill, they come with great inconsistency as well. Yep. So he could come out here and light this thing up versus the Buccaneers, but it's hard to believe, especially considering that the Buccaneers their defense is carrying their offense, which is something, it was a part of the situation last season, but it wasn't the full equation.
Ashton, if anybody's been watching us on YouTube and twitch.tv/BrokeBoySports over the past couple of weeks, you will notice right down here at the bottom part of your screen, it says Thrive Fantasy. They're daily fantasy sports. I can't speak. It is a daily fantasy sports app for prop bets. So when you watch the big game in February, we all get all in on the props and, who's going to throw more touchdowns, who's going to have touchdowns and interceptions. It's great to get involved in #PropUp. Go ahead and download Thrive Fantasy. Use the code BrokeBoy. You get $20 down and $20 back. They're also doing a lot of other promotions where you can get some money back as well. You can get in on, of course, we're breaking down NFL action. There's NFL prop bets galore in that thing. There's NBA while the finals go on. You can get on some of that action, which I'm going to be looking towards before the game tips off on Wednesday. We haven't even mentioned the MLB playoffs getting going and the Astros winning their first game. There's some MLB props on there. So go ahead, download it on the Google App Store and the Apple app, or the Google Store and Apple apps. Oh my God, I'm completely butchering this one, Ashton. Go ahead and download it on your phone. You know where to download apps. Search Thrive
Give
Fantasy.
Give them your money.
Code Broke Boy. Yep, there we go. And now we go into one of the better games of the week. We transition to the NFC North, where the Green Bay Packers are 3-0 after beating the New Orleans Saints 37-30. We already talked about Alvin Kamara being a fantasy nuke. Ashton, what are some of your takeaways?
Man, the variance in the teams that we saw in between the with the Saints from week 1 to week 2 to week 3, because the team we saw in week 1 and week 2, even those teams, they did not play well. They look totally different, right? The losing to the Raiders thing is looking more. It looks like it could be a fluke when it's all said and done, because if you or the other thing, the other thing that just entered my mind almost instantaneously is like maybe the Saints just play down in competition this year.
Yeah, they're just exactly. Like they'll get up for the big games and then down for the Raiders. And I
Yeah.
still can't believe that I thought the Raiders were. I mean, they got absolutely trampled by the Patriots. But yeah,
Don't worry, Martin. A lot of people
a
fell
lot
for
of people
that.
bought into that. Yeah,
Most of them around the Oakland and Las Vegas areas of
I feel
America.
like
But
Derek Carr for some Derek. Well, we talk about the Raiders. Derek Carr for some reason has this like when he plays well, or like not even just well, like when he balls out like he did on Monday night, like it. There's just something about it that you like. Like you gravitate toward. I don't know if it's everybody, but like when he is fucking on point, he's awesome to watch. And then he goes up against the Patriots and he can't even. It looks like he's David Carr out there. It's
and then
ridiculous.
life happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, this is it like you said, they play to their opponent. I don't know what to think about this Saints team, Ashton. You guys listen in, you can't see the rundown that Ashton and I are working off of, but I literally started to type and then couldn't figure out the words to put on the thing to be like, I don't know, Ashton. I don't know what to think about this Saints team. Like Michael Thomas didn't do anything in game one. He's missed 2 games because of injury, but like with Drew Brees throwing the ball the way he is, I mean, does he? Will Michael Thomas even make a difference?
Yeah, it's weird, man, because you look at, and I think I did mention this. So there's a bunch of key factors that are starting to weigh in here, man. Drew Brees is 31st in air yards, which if you're not an advanced stats person, I totally understand that. Advanced stats will show you some things, but it won't tell you what the real situation is for the most part. But the advanced stat of air yards is it's the number of it's the amount of yards you're actually throwing to get to the wide receiver. It tells you who's like killing it off of short yardage. It's telling you who's killing it off of screens and stuff like that, because that's a totally different style of offense, right? Like it separates the guys who are throwing the ball down the field and the guys who are hitting and timing up a lot of throws at different locations. So he's 31st among the 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to air yards. And we're only 3 games into the season, but it's something to pay attention to, man, because now it's something you have to start to entertain. And a lot of people are saying he's getting old and all that kind of stuff like that. Yeah, cool. He gets old. It's time to make the adjustment, right?
Yeah.
Like we gotta make the moves. We gotta make the adjustment so that we can be in a position to win, like as a team. And that's what the Saints seemingly did on Sunday Night Football, man. And if they can continue to do that against against defenses that are worse than the Packers, which there's a lot of those out there in the NFL, it could spell success for them. But I mean, how many shots in the cannon does Drew Brees have left?
Yeah.
To be able to get when it comes down, like sometimes you gotta make a play down the field, man. Like especially when defenses start to just play flat out man to man, or they start to double, or they start to play cover zones and stuff like that, or they start to send extra blitzers to cut down the amount of time you have to read the short distances or short range passes. Well, who knows, man? They're an interesting team. They're the number one team that you're just kind of like, huh? But you're also not really super interested in watching them play football right now, which is the weird part about it. So
yeah, I agree. It's both of these teams. Like I don't know if the Packers are a fake or like a fraud 3-0, but they are definitely benefiting off the fact that of like what their schedule has like put on their plate in front of them, you know. And the other 3-0 team in the NFC North, Ashton, the Chicago Bears. We called it. I can guarantee we called it that the Atlanta Falcons were going to blow another lead. I mean, it's a joke at this point that Dan Quinn, like Dan Quinn, is still having his job after how many? I said this. I could literally replay you the sound. It's insane that Dan Quinn, a defensive-minded coach, continues to blow leads in the second half and lose these games. And Ashton, do you want to go ahead and tell our people who the quarterback was for the Chicago Bears at the end of that game?
The man with the biggest dick in the NFL, apparently.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anyway, Nick Foles ushered, as we all suspected, Nick Foles probably won that quarterback competition at the beginning of the season, and Mitchell Trubisky was given what seemingly is one more chance. We'll see what happens, because there ain't nothing like putting in the backup who balls out of control and then gets hurt the next week or the week after or the week after that, and then you got to go back to the dude that you lost faith in and then pretend that you have faith in him. So that hopefully that's not going to be the case, because we don't want Nick to get hurt again. We saw what happened when he got hurt when he was playing with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was not fun times. So just something to think about. And it makes you wonder, like, as good as Nick Foles is, man, how good is Gardner Minshew to be able to squeeze wins out of a team that Nick Foles couldn't get wins out of?
Ashton,
anyway, like I said,
Ashton, really quickly.
Like I mentioned before, I was going to say, remember I told you, I was like, Gardner Minshew is wild.
Yeah.
And wild can go good or bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe his wild is just more good than bad than often or not. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Stat of the whole fucking weekend. Who led the Chicago Bears in rushing yards?
Please don't tell me it was Nick Foles.
No, it wasn't Big Dick Nick. It was the other guy, Mitchell Trubisky.
Oh, yeah, fun times.
He had a 45-yard run at one point during the game. His only carry in the stat sheet. David Montgomery had a stinker of a game. 14 carries, also for 45 yards, but Mitchell Trubisky is credited as having the most rushing yards for the Bears, but he gets pulled. Big Dick Nick comes in, and he does what Big Dick Nick does and leads them on 3 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter. It was 26-10, Ashton. They had an almost 99% win probability. This game was actually worse. Like, they blew this game harder than they did against the Cowboys. The Cowboys, they were only at a 98% probability to win when the Cowboys came back. They were at 99 against the Bears before the fourth quarter started. And then Big Dig Nick finds Jimmy Graham, finds Allen Robinson, finds Anthony Miller. And with 2 minutes to go in the game, the Falcons had somehow blown another lead. It is wild to see. And when does it stop? I mean, as a Falcons fan, you've got to be asking, when is it enough? Like, when is it time to just be like, all right, this isn't work? Like, Dan Quinn, thank you for getting us to the Super Bowl, but you've made us the Jets are the actual laughing stock of the NFL right now. The Falcons are like the joke of the NFL right now, if that makes any sense.
Fun. Yeah. I mean, it's just like there's nothing else to really say about these guys anymore, man. So a lot of talent, and a lot of talent does not convert to skill, and it does not convert to wins. So yeah, man. It's going downhill fast. It's 0-3. Can't let that define your season. We already talked about it there earlier in this episode. But fact of the matter is, man, the Falcons are not showing that they have what it takes to go to that next level. And maybe we'll see it later on in the year, but right now they look like one of the worst team, if not the worst team in the NFL, because they have all the talent in the world and they just can't utilize it to win. Martin, we got this next one here, man. I'm going to let you take it. The Detroit Lions defeated the Arizona Cardinals 26-23, or let me say it in Martinville terms. The 1-2 Detroit Lions defeated the Super Bowl contender, Super Bowl finalist for the NFC, Arizona Cardinals, 26-3. And I'm sure Martin's got every excuse under the planet as to why that happened. So go ahead.
No excuses. Kyler Murray played poorly. 3 interceptions. That's not going to win you a lot of football games or any football games. It'd be interesting to see how many quarterbacks have won a game in the NFL throwing 3 interceptions. I watched most of this game. I decided to turn Red Zone off and watch my Cardinals. I could not believe it, to be honest. Actually, I could, Ashton, because the Detroit Lions, they'd lost 11 in a row. Yeah, they aren't the best team in the NFL, but we have seen them have leads and just blow it. I got to give them credit, man. They didn't blow a lead. And of course, it had to come against a team that I've been fucking. It's no September, but I've been standing the Arizona Cardinals since DeAndre Hopkins got traded over there. And it's weird. I don't think DeAndre actually has a touchdown yet. Or I think does he have a touchdown yet? Let me
I don't
see.
know, man. You're the super fan. That'd be
Uh,
interesting if he didn't, because it would
oh, he's
be
got one. Okay, he's got
okay.
one. He's leading. He's like set all these NFL records with his yards and his catches for a new team, but he's not finding the end zone. And as Texans fans, we knew that sometimes DeAndre has he's done that before in his career where he puts up a lot of yards, but I mean he's got one, two, three, four, almost half of his time in Houston, he didn't put up double-digit touchdowns. So the end zone um, it's not a problem for DeAndre Hopkins. He's got that Julio Jones issue where he just doesn't score touchdowns. But no, there's no denying this one. The Lions beat them. The Lions played better than any of us could have imagined. I think I don't. Did you pick the Lions to win this game? I can't remember who you picked, but
No, I didn't on this one, man. That's a team that the Detroit Lions are one known for blowing fourth quarter leads. So
yeah,
that's a team that you can't prescribe to, because it almost doesn't matter like what their skill level is, because they are a team that has talented football players. You look at like Kenny Galladay, Matthew Stafford's like for real. The evolution of I would I'll reluctantly say his name, Julian Edelman. But yeah, by the way, Jeffrey Okuda, um, he has been getting it. Like, he has been getting the welcome to the NFL treatment. He has had Devontae Adams
was it Adam Thielen?
Allen Robinson,
or Allen Robinson?
and
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins
Yep.
in his first three matchups. Goddamn. Like, I mean, dude, good luck to you. He's a first round pick for a reason, man. The kid's really skilled, and you know, he's learning. He's learning real fast. He's gonna learn today.
Yeah.
Is the perfect time to say. It's the perfect time to use that phrase, because it's been rough for the starting corner for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I won't go 10 minutes on the Cardinals like I have the past 2 weeks. This one was a tough loss, man. I mean, for a team I think really highly of to lose. I mean, it's only 3 points, but it was a bad loss. Kyler did his thing running the ball. He got that touchdown. He got the highlight. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the little juke that he put on the Lions defender getting in the end zone, but it was sexy. But throwing 3 picks, man, can't be winning games and going to the Super Bowl if you're throwing 3 picks. Buda Baker, I actually didn't mention this in the injury report. Buda Baker, who signed that massive contract over the offseason right before the season started, and I think could possibly be one of the best safeties in the league. He played that entire game with, I believe, a torn muscle in his thumb. So we have to wait and see how he's going to be playing, because they're actually talking about moving Isaiah Simmons to safety this week because Buda Baker got hurt.
Yeah, they're talking about moving their middle linebacker to safety. That's the situation. That's fun.
Yeah, so
No, I wanted to put it in perspective in terms of the flexibility that they see and the flexibility they see in Isaiah Wilson, because he's supposed to be the chosen one for them on defense.
yeah,
We'll see how that works out.
yeah, we'll see how he does move. He did it at Clemson, but again, credit to the Lions. They didn't blow the lead. It sucked that it happened. I mean, it sucked that it happened to the team that I have picked to go to the Super Bowl. You don't want to see one of their losses being 26-23 to the lowly Detroit Lions. Ashton, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about that game. I have no excuses.
No.
I literally don't. It just sucks. I mean, Ashton tagged me in a tweet saying that they're in a barn burner. I can't even remember what it was. And I remember just looking at my phone and being like, yeah, man, like this sucks. Like I was not expecting a 26-23 outcome, but we got, I believe, one more game left to cover here, Ashton, and it's between two teams that neither you or I are truly impressed with, even though I think the Titans will end up winning the division. They beat the Minnesota Vikings 31-30.
Oh,
Minnesota's winless. Tennessee has yet to lose. Do you have any takeaway other than Justin Jefferson popped off and had one of the best celebrations so far this season?
yeah, he pulled off the Gritty, which, by the way, did Gritty respond to that? I know
I haven't seen it yet.
Gritty's been running some kind of 5K all over all over the Philadelphia area. So anyway, shout out to Gritty, the real OG, real OG who just got here like 2 years ago, the real legend of mascots that adults and children love alike, and truly hilarious. He was the only guy who had enough balls to call out the Astros in the funniest way possible by saying the Astros taught me. He brought a trash can to the game and started banging it with the Houston Astros logo on it. And he said the Astros taught, well, the caption was the Astros taught me, and then he pulled out the trash can, doom, 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 and it was good times. Justin Jefferson imitated one of his dances that he does typically when he's out there, and it was pretty smooth, man. Justin Jefferson with the slick footwork, man. So not only can the dude dice up defenders, which by the way, if you go back and watch that replay of that first touchdown where he splits the two defenders and they run into each other while he cruises into the end zone, it is wild that a human being has that kind of explosion and is that small, because like Justin Jefferson's a skinny guy. So that was pretty impressive. Got to see a massive comeback, which all but locked in and assured me of my opinion of the Tennessee Titans on a level that I've never been more sure about anything, Martin. It was pretty cut and dry that the Tennessee Titans don't have it. Ryan Tannehill's been playing really well against porous teams, which is what people expected of him. He was above that. He was an average quarterback when he was with the Miami Dolphins. They were just a below average team. Derrick Henry had an appearance. He's been kind of slowly chugging his way to get back to get to full steam, because you know his peak season is right around when it becomes hardest to get hit by people. When the air's got that snap to it when you hit somebody, that's when Derrick Henry's out here laying these pads down. But he had a huge impact on this game. I'll be interested to see what they're able to do when if AJ Brown comes back, because he's hurt right now. He's a huge part of what their offense is all about. Other than that, man, I didn't really have any takeaways about the team from this one. So
no, Titans shouldn't be winning by 1 point to the Vikings. That kind of goes to I mean, of course I'm playing Derrick Henry when he has his first pop off for this. Like, dude, the guy I played in my main fantasy league, he had I lost by almost 100 points, and it was he had Patrick Mahomes, the Colts defense, Derrick Henry, and some wide receiver that got 30 points. But I don't really have anything to say about either of these teams. The Vikings play the Texans. I think we'll learn more about the Vikings in Week 4 than we will in Week 3, when the Vikings come to NRG and play the Texans. Because if they put up 30 points, I don't see the Texans scoring 31. So I lied saying it was the last game, Ashton. I believe we've got two more here on the list. It is we can get through the 49ers and Giants really quickly if you want to. Both New York teams are fucking garbage this year. Like, you don't like me you don't like me using the word garbage on some teams. I think we can agree the Jets and Giants are garbage.
Kyle Shanahan's back to genius, baby. Yeah. Back to genius level. To not be questioned is what Kyle Shanahan is here, Martin. So Kyle Shanahan cooked up 36 points with his starting his elite level starting quarterback, Nick Mullins. By the way, that 36 points came on all offense, which means that, Nick Mullins scored more points this week than Phillip Rivers versus the Jets. Yep. I just wanted to put that out there. I wanted to make sure we were all on the same page, because Phillip Rivers threw for 1 touchdown, and then they scored 2 field goals and they rushed for 1 touchdown. Nick Mullins did his thing this week, by the way. If you paid attention the last time Nick Mullins played, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's not that surprising. They were also playing one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
Three field goals from the Giants. Congrats. Or was it a touchdown and a mixed extra point? Let's see. Let me bring up this amazing game recap. Nope. All field goals. They can't even get the ball in the end zone. Danny Dimes led the team in rushing.
And Danny Dimes also led the team in bad plays.
17 of 32. Bad. It's just
that's pretty much all we got on this one, man. Like,
let's move on. Let's move on to a lot. Let's move on to what could we say this was the game of the week? Once the things are over.
It was a pivotal game as a whole. I try not to be in the business of trying to take away touchdowns, but this game looks a little bit different if that touchdown from DK Metcalf scores
Yeah.
and everything like that. But fact of the matter is, it didn't count, and that's how it goes. That was also Stephon Diggs' brother, right? Like
Yep. It was his
Calvin
brother.
Diggs, who
Yep.
popped it out. Shout out to him, man. Rookie corner out there going up against an actual monster, an actual like behemoth of a human being, and DK Metcalf. But what we known about the Seattle Seahawks is true. They are letting Russ go out there, do his thing. They're letting Chris Carson run the ball. He's going crazy out there. He's running rampant, was running rampant until he got hurt because of that role. But once again, everything going on with the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of it stems from, all right, so how we want to address this. So today, Jerry Jones had his radio show, right, that he does every single week. And he had this commentary about, like, do you think there's a gap between the Cowboys and the Chiefs? It's obviously a yes.
100% yes.
He said it was a yes. We all knew it was going to be a yes. But then he went into, like, great detail about Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the guy that he wanted, if he was going to be able to pick him, which is a weird thing to say, especially considering you just paid Ezekiel Elliott, who is what you want Clyde Edwards-Helaire to become, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's I didn't hear that. That's fucking weird. Like, why would you say that? Like, now you
there's
got
some
Zeke. Like,
No. And then there's other conversation being had, of course, about Dak Prescott and if he's going to get paid, if he's going to even be back next year, which would be the most Cowboys thing of all time, to have like a guy who can go out there and win you football games and then be like, nah, we're good.
We'll stick with
you and I are still. We'll go with Andy Dalton, dog.
You and I are still way.
Do you think? Okay, so objectively, do you think Dak Prescott's better than Andy Dalton?
Oh yeah, that's not the question. But to keep Dak Prescott as their quarterback, they're gonna have to pay him $40 million. Like, Dak has not proven himself to be a $40 million quarterback. There's no way to argue it except his empty stats. 37 of 57, 472 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. To me, that's like you're playing fucking 7-on-7 ball, or I don't know. That's just,
and then
maybe it's my Cowboys hatred, but I just don't think it's.
He did that against a Super Bowl contender.
I mean,
right?
Yeah, but this is what I was going to ask this in our question segment. The Seahawks have given up more passing yards through 3 games.
Yeah. Shh.
Don't. So we're not bringing that one up. So
you think I didn't know? You think I don't know that? You think I don't know?
I'm just saying,
like, biggest weakness is also their greatest strength. Like their passing ability. By the way, the other thing that they don't talk about, Martin, the Seahawks are really bad at generating pressure without sending an extra blitzer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 12 plays. It's back-to-back games with 12 plays with Jamal Adams blitzing to generate pressure on the offensive line. So, I get it. I know. Everybody knows. I just personally would take Russell Wilson's stat line to Dak Prescott's. Barely 300 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. To Dak Prescott, could have been 6.
Yeah, could have been 6. To Dak Prescott's just empty stats. They don't mean anything. He lost, but he put up a fucking half a mile of passing yards.
It's weird because, like, the game was one possession, and you're saying the person who scored less but kept the game closer with his team is the one with the empty stats, even though the argument goes to say, like, look at what Russell Wilson had to do to get away from the Cowboys. Right? That's an argument to be had. I'm not in the business of defending the Dallas Cowboys, so don't get me out here on this bullshit.
I'm just trying to back you in the corner of defending the Cowboys and Dak Prescott.
I defend Dak Prescott. I like Amari Cooper a lot. I think Michael Gallup is very good. One of the better wide receiver XYZ, right? Yeah, one of the better wide receivers when you talk about like second tier receivers for sure. I like a lot of, which, by the way, another thing that nobody's really talking about, Cowboys offensive line that was like best in the league 3 years ago looks nothing like it used to. And every single week they're losing people. They're losing, like Tyron Smith's not coming back for a couple weeks. I saw Mosher, who is a really good football guy when it comes to the draft. He did like his analysis and he said that they should be sitting one of the offensive linemen for I think it's not Travis Frederick. One of the offensive linemen for the Dallas Cowboys shouldn't even be out there playing because of how poorly he played against the Seattle Seahawks. But hey, I like Dak Prescott. I think he, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and a couple of those. I mean, Calvin Diggs is looking pretty good for a rookie, man.
Yeah.
And so is Awuzie, dude. Like a lot of people not talking about him, man. Like I feel like he's been playing pretty decent this season. I might be wrong on that one. Hit me up on FB_playbook if I am. But nonetheless, man, there's some players on the Dallas Cowboys. My thing is like I can hate the team, but also respect the players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
so
all I got to say on that one, man.
I think that's the entire week 3 schedule we've just gotten through there, Ashton. We're still in a disagreement on the Texans. I'm heartbroken about my Cardinals. Your Seahawks secondary. So our next segment here is asking all them questions. So I'll just get straight into it, Ashton. Um, with how poor or how many yards the Seahawks secondary has given up, and knowing that on the other side of the ball you could be going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, are you still on the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl?
Seahawks play the Dolphins next week. Then the week after that, they play. Let's see.
He's
The week
dodging
after
the
that,
question. He's dodging the
they play the
question.
Vikings the week after that, and then they play. Oh, look at that! Look at who they play in this. Oh, actually, they have a bye week for week 6, which is terrible. A week 6 bye. Oh my God, I'd be calling somebody irate, to be honest with you. Like,
Ashton, how do you feel about your Super Bowl pick? Answer the question.
I feel. Dude, I'm telling you right now, I feel just fine. By the way, they play the Cardinals in week 7. So when they cooked them alive, I don't really want to hear anything about that. But yeah,
October 25th for those that are wondering when the Cardinals and it's October 25th and November 19th. So we've got 2 games about a month apart where we get to see both of our NFC picks in the Super Bowl go head to head.
By the time that November game rolls around, we can be in a very different kind of world.
I think I'll still be on board. I did nothing in the loss.
I put emphasis on the term world.
Maybe I should put emphasis on the term country. Yeah, that is true. But speaking of, we are recording on September 29th, and the first debate between the 2 presidential candidates is taking place tonight.
Debate, y'all.
Yep, the first debate. I'm going to be going ahead and watching that. Once we get done here recording, Ashton and everybody out there listening that is eligible to vote in America, please do. Please listen and don't forget.
Who you vote for, just do it.
Yeah, don't just vote at. Don't just research the top. Ashton and I have talked about this before on a couple of episodes. What you vote on in November is a lot of the problems I think we can or the difference in opinions of just the different people that represent you and your community. So make sure that you research what you're voting for. It's going to be an interesting November, to say the least, once we get over there. But Ashton, we are focused on sports. I only have one more question. I believe you have a couple of 1 or 2 viewer questions in there. I'll just get mine out of the way first. So I've asked you about the Seahawks. My other question, and it's kind of leads into what I believe you have as a viewer question. The Texans against the Steelers. It was more of a roller coaster than the first 2 games. What do you think can be done to get the Texans back on the right track?
So we've already talked about this. Like the level of competition they're playing is like sky high. But at the end of the day, those 3 teams they just played are teams that they have to beat if they want to get to where, like, the end goal, right? Like in some way, shape, or form, they could be lined up to play those teams again in a couple of months from now. My biggest thing is I see progression with the offense naturally as it goes on. My biggest emphasis is always going to be more protection, a greater ability to defend, against pressure, to give Deshaun Watson more time, because the stuff that the defense is doing as of right now, the tackling is the stuff that we've seen the last couple of years, right? What we have not seen is the success that we're seeing from the secondary. Like the secondary for me is doing a good job of stopping like the deep passes, the deep bombs down the field. And that's a good start. Maybe it progresses to stopping the short yardage stuff. Maybe the theory is like I'd rather die by paper cuts than by a gunshot or a shot to the back of the head or whatever it is. And the more short yardage plays that you allow, the more opportunities you create to stop the opponent, right? Like if you can only stop one thing, you want to stop the deep plays down. You want to stop the deep bombs down the field because that can be like the opposing team ran 3 plays and they scored 3 touchdowns. Whereas if you stop the deep bombs down the field and they kill you underneath, they ran 15 plays and got 1 touchdown. So that's an opportunity. I think that's something to be said. They got to learn how to. What really has to happen is the offense has to start setting the pace, not the defense. So
I agree. I can't. One of the things that's most frustrating is the third down efficiency, and
yeah,
it's just
defensive third down efficiency. Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
yeah,
they do all the work to get to third down.
and then they just fucking let a wide open wide receiver just fucking catch. Like it's infuriating.
Right.
Watch
And
like
what a lot of teams are doing, they're running zone defense, which means that if you attack the edges of the field, there won't be somebody standing on the sideline, right? Like nobody's going to set a zone defender to put their foot right next to the inline or right next to out of bounds. They attack in the edge of the zone, and by the time the linebacker or safety, whoever it is, gets over to make the tackle, they've gained 5 more yards, which is enough for a first down. And that keeps happening. And it's probably going to keep happening throughout the course of the season unless something changes drastically. I hope there isn't a gigantic rash of injuries that set up this thing for failure. I saw Vernon Hargreaves make a couple of good plays, which is surprising because, he's a guy who
I was high on him. I was so excited when they brought him in.
He's in the right situation where he doesn't have as much pressure as he does with the Texans on him. He can succeed, right?
Like in Florida, he was fucking awesome.
Yeah, he has a lot of pressure on him here when he's a part of the Houston Texans because he's got like a huge role. Like it's not like when he was with Tampa Bay where he slowly worked his way further and further out of the defensive back rotation. It's one of those situations where he's gonna have to play no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have to figure it out, which could be good for him. But for right now, they're giving up a lot of third downs. They're doing the work. They're getting the pressure up the middle. They're doing a good job of stopping the run in a lot of these cases, and they're just not finishing on third down. And finishing is a huge part of winning NFL football games. But the other thing for asking all them questions, my guy Fernando Luna sent one in, F Luna on Instagram. Go follow him there. He posts about his motorcycles mostly and like the fun stuff he does. So, but yeah, he said what happened in the second half of the Texans. What happened to the second half of that game for the Texans offense? And I mentioned it before. The Pittsburgh Steelers played elite level defense because they figured out every single time that the Texans were running. They did. Like there's video of it where they're like every time the Texans ran, they pulled a guard. The guard was occupied blocking blocking a nickel corner that came from 7 yards out. So around the linebacker area, right? Came from 7 yards out. And now the linebackers have a clean shot. David Johnson, the linebackers have a clean shot at a tackle on a running back. They were flowing really well. By the way, Vince Williams, interesting player he plays linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's got 8 tackles for loss this season already. So something to pay attention to there, especially as the season goes on. But yeah, they did a great job of occupying the run game for the Texans, making them one-dimensional. And you can't compete when you're one-dimensional in the NFL, especially when you give up so much pressure. And in terms of like pass rush, in terms of pass rush pressure, you just can't, and that's what happened to him.
Yeah, I honestly I can't tell you what happened because I didn't fucking watch the game because I was too busy watching Red Zone. Like I'm too busy watching good things happen for all 31 other, or actually all 29 because nothing good happened for the Jets or the Giants. But yeah, I can't really. I'd have to go back and look at like time of possession. Like we said earlier, only 5 plays ran on the Pittsburgh side of the ball in the second half. I mean, to me, that comes down to coaching. Like you said, the Steelers figured them out. That's 100% on the coaching. If you can't coach to where your tells are that easy to figure out, then you shouldn't really be in the NFL. Yeah, just another like I give them their credit in the first half. They were competent in the first half. They, like, you texted me at one point and were like, they're gonna do this. Like, or you didn't say that verbatim, but you were like, "This is the You were like, "This is the Texans this is the Texans that Texans fans were kind of expecting." Like you said, cooking. Like Deshaun Watson was on in the first half, and the coaching is at the level where they can get figured out by halftime. In the second half, they collapsed, and that's all there is to it. Ashton, do you have any more questions, or do we got our
No,
last segment?
we're gonna hit these 10 things you didn't want to know and get out of here in under 3 hours.
Yes.
So Matthew Stafford completed his 29th career fourth quarter comeback, which, goddamn it, it's gonna suck when Matthew Stafford goes into the Hall of Fame with a losing
record. Yeah.
Yeah, and never gone to the play. He's gone to the playoffs one time, I think.
He'll be a prime example of what you and I talked about. Was it last week with Gale Sayers? Can you tell the story of the NFL without Matthew Stafford? And that's going to be a question.
Story of the Detroit Lions. You
exactly.
Can't tell the story of one of the franchises without him. So
yeah, it's one of those things where we're going to have a lot of these quarterbacks once they retire and 5 years later. We're going to have this conversation a lot in the next, I'd say, 10, 15 years about, does this quarterback belong in the Hall of Fame, or was he just part of an era in the NFL where a lot of stuff has happened? Go ahead.
Right now, we would both vote Matthew Stafford over Matt Ryan, like easily.
Matt Ryan went to the Super Bowl though.
Yeah, and I would say that.
But I wouldn't say either of them are. But if you're gonna put one in, I'd say the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl loser. I would say my thing is like I look at what Matthew Stafford's done, knowing what his situation is, and I'm like, yo, you look at the situation as a whole. Matthew Stafford's been the only thing that's been consistent there for a decade, and it's hard to sit there like there's a conversation to be had for Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford basically being on level playing field. Anyway. Patrick Mahomes has passed 10,000 passing yards in his 34th career game.
Yeah, that's wild.
Fastest in NFL history to ever do that. The other second fastest is now Kurt Warner. He did it in 36. 14 touchdown passes in 3 games. First QB ever with 4 TD passes in each of his first 3 games of the season. That is one Russell Wilson. He surpassed Patrick Mahomes, who had 13 in 2018. I think that was the year he threw for 50 touchdowns, which is crazy to think about. Drew Brees just had his 94th career game with 3+ passing touchdowns. He broke Peyton Manning's record in the process of doing that. He also set Saints history.
Yeah. Really quickly, Ashton, it's interesting as like being a producer behind the scenes. There is so many like. You get these little PR books whenever you go to like NFL games, and there'll be a page of like what records some players are close to breaking, and Drew Brees is like 2 whole pages long. Like Tom Brady's was like that when Peyton was still in the league. Like it's crazy, like how many stats and how many like historical things, all of them are like on the cusp of, and like there's one stat where each week this season, Tom Brady and Drew Brees can pass each other back and forth.
Right.
I think it's like I can't remember if it's touchdowns.
It's probably like all-time. It's probably all-time touchdowns.
It's it's an all-timer where they're basically tied, and they can go back and forth on it. It's crazy.
Yeah, Todd Gurley's 10-yard rushing TD, which is on Sunday in that losing effort versus the Bears, is his 60th rushing touchdown of his career. Gurley is now the 14th player since 1950 with 60+ rushing touchdowns. It doesn't even seem like he's been in the league that long. And his first 6 NFL seasons, so he's got at least 10 per year on average. 9 of the 14 players to ever do that are in the NFL Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The other 4 are Adrian Peterson, Sean Alexander, Clinton Portis, and Maurice Jones-Drew.
How is Sean Alexander not in the Hall of Fame?
Reasons. Because reasons.
He played for the Seahawks when the Seahawks weren't he went to the Super Bowl. He was there.
Carried him to the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Juju Smith-Schuster already has 3 receiving touchdowns this season. He had 3 all of last year.
Yep. That's what Big Ben over the Duck will do for him.
Over insert random quarterback here. Mason Rudolph and
the
Duck. The highest rated quarterback in the NFL this season by PFF after 3 weeks, Xavier Rhodes. This is interesting because the Vikings said he was basically washed up. Ryan Fitzpatrick now holds the completion record for the Dolphins in like franchise history, and also his personal best, which was 90%. He completed 90% of his passes on Thursday Night Football.
Do you have
Just wild to think about.
Do you have the other one about Ryan Fitzpatrick where he's now beat the Jacksonville Jaguars on?
On like 7 different
Yeah,
teams.
I think it's 7. Is it? Yeah, it's 6, 7, 8, 9. I can't remember the exact number, but it's between 5 and 10 of different teams that Ryan Fitzpatrick has been on that has beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars. I love stats like these, man. I love it.
Taking the L. Also, this one's from ESPN Stats and Info. It's really funny. I had to say this one. The NFC East is now a combined 2-9-1 through 3 weeks. They have a win percentage of 20. It's 20%. That's the second worst percentage through 3 weeks for a single division since the NFL went to 8 divisions in 2002.
Yeah, they're all under 500, right?
Yep, there's one division who has 1 win.
Yeah,
I think.
like Washington and Dallas are currently tied for the NFC East at 1 and 2. Like, come on.
Unstoppable. That's all I got here, Martin. That's all I got for the 10 things you didn't want to know. That's the NFL wrap-up show for week 3.
Yeah, we got
of
week
the
4.
NFL season.
Yeah, week 4, and then episode 97 on Thursday of the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. Thank you for everybody that has been downloading, been listening, been tuning in on Twitch, following along, clicking on the links on Twitter. Yeah.
By the way, if you've been listening, I just want to let you know that you're a part of something special. We've had our first back-to-back 100 download month in the history of this podcast.
Hell yeah.
So we had 200 downloads we had 200 downloads in the span of 2 months. We've got 100 unique Twitch views in the 12 streams that we've now put out into the world, into the ether, and we're continuing to grow. So thank you to everybody else who is hooking us up, who is listening even for just an hour or so, paying attention and giving a shit about what we have to say. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've officially named Frosty our first super fan, as he likes to dip in and out of the chat and get at us on Twitter at MartinPape_ and FB_playbook. He definitely is a ride or die on the Texans are trash train. He's the not the caboose. He's the conductor. He is the conductor of it. He was able to get me on board after 7 years of defending Bill O'Brien. Ashton is 1 game away from being one of us. So tune in on Thursday. We'll break down week 4. We'll talk about the best of the best, worst of the worst, what's popping. Make sure to download Thrive Fantasy. Use code BrokeBoy. When you put $20 down, you get $20 back. Ashton?
There's only one thing left to say, Martin. Wash your hands, wash your ass, wash your whole body, really. The only thing I have left to say to you is stay home, Roger.